Now we go to Busch Stadium. It's ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. Oral Hershiser and Bobby Valentine are with Dan Schulman.
Steve, thank you very much, and welcome to St. Louis, where it is unseasonably cool for August here in the Midwest. Temperature down around 80 degrees, no humidity. Might get down into the 60s tonight. A picture-perfect evening for a ball game here at Busch Stadium. A big crowd will be in the house as the Cardinals and Rockies finish up this three-game series. Albert Pujols with 28 home runs, tied for the National League lead right now. Hitting in the 280s, trying to get hot and help lead his team back closer to Milwaukee and maybe into the postseason. And speaking of hot, other than an 0 for 4 in last night's game, nobody has been hotter lately than Troy Tulowitzki. And as we all know, he can get on a hot streak like nobody's business in Major League Baseball. Hi, everybody, and welcome to St. Louis. I'm Dan Schulman. It's the Rockies and Cardinals wrapping up this three-game series, as Steve Berthew mentioned. Every game is so important right now for St. Louis, trying not to lose sight of Milwaukee atop the National League Central Division. They're 5.5 back of the Brewers, and they have split the first two games of this series with Colorado. On Friday night in the sixth inning, Albert Pujols with an RBI single gave the Cardinals a 2-1 lead. Matt Holliday would double in John Jay, and David Freese with a two-run single. The Cardinals beat the Rockies 6-1. Last night, Carlos Gonzalez, third inning, two men on, 0-2 pitch. And he hits it out to right center for a three-run homer. Todd Helton with a two-run double as Colorado turns the tables on St. Louis, winning by the identical scores they lost Friday night, a 6-1 win as they even up the series at a win apiece. Here's a look at the standings with St. Louis now 5.5 back in Milwaukee. The Brewers have won 16 out of 18. St. Louis also 5.5 back in the wild card race. Joined as always by Bobby Valentine and Oral Hershiser. So the bottom line is this: the Cardinals need wins. To get wins, they need Albert Pujols to get hot and stay hot. Do you see a difference in him or the way teams are pitching him this year?
Well, Albert Pujols came into this season as the best hitter. And then from the best hitter, he is one of the best hitters now. And the reason is because of the inside fastball. When he is approaching the inside fastball last year, he could hit it and hit it far and hit it long and keep it fair. This year, when he's being pitched in, he's losing his patience. He's opening up. He's chasing the fastball in. And the fact that he's doing that and making outs have lowered his average. His career average is below 50 points, the norm. But look at the power and the average that has gone down. 2 years ago, he was hitting for power, he's hitting for average. The inside fastball, when the count ends in that, the average has come down, the power has come down. Albert's different. It's going to be hot. He's going to have to get used to that inside fastball.
The undisputed best player in baseball for the last decade. Some feel, Bobby, maybe one of the great players in baseball now and for the next decade is Colorado shortstop Troy Tulowitzki.
Yeah, I think that Troy Tulowitzki is the best shortstop in the game of baseball. I think that his range, his ability to throw, his speed, power, and hitting ability make him the #1 guy. You know that he can really range to his left and to his right, and he has a cannon for an arm. His hitting ability is unrivaled at shortstop with his ability to hit the ball out of the park as well as hit for an average. But after signing a 10-year contract, he's being asked more of. He's being asked to be a leader. He's being asked to always hit in the clutch. And this desire on his part to meet those expectations has brought a lot of pressure into his game. He's expanding this strike zone and not delivering as much as his team wants. I think he will in the future, but he needs to come to grips with the fact that he's a very good player and let the game come to him.
The Rockies not really thinking about being a spoiler, even though they're under 500, thinking about getting hot like they have gotten hot in some recent years. Let's go down to the field now. Buster Olney is with outfielder Dexter Fowler.
Dexter, not in the lineup tonight, but since you were recalled from the minor leagues, you've hit .333. What changed for you?
I actually developed a leg kick. You know, first day in BP, I came back, and the second group in BP, I developed a leg kick. Carney Lansford came in and asked me, you know, would I feel comfortable doing it, and I tried it, and the rest is, you know, it's taken off since then.
Dexter, thanks. Pedro, over to you.
Rafael, you've been hitting a little bit better lately. You're hitting only .209. I know that fans of yours are saying, wait, .209. But 16 safe hits in the last 20 games and an 8-game hitting streak. What has changed for you?
You know, for me right now, I know it's tough year. I've been hurt for like almost 3 months at least, and then right now, you know, I keep working. I keep working hard and be positive. I get my heads up, and when I go to the field, I try to do the best I can, and I'm working a lot with Mike McGuire and Albert Pujols, and we watch a video, and right now I try to get him better and better, and try to help my team.
All right, Rafael, thank you. Dan?
Pedro, thank you very much. Also coming up tonight, we'll look at the team that the Cardinals are chasing in the National League Central. Can anybody cool off the red-hot Milwaukee Brewers? Baseball tonight will take you around the majors. The latest on Dan Uggla's hitting streak, as well as some of the big performances from today. And hey, how about the surprising Arizona Diamondbacks? Currently the leaders in the National League West. Will check in on that division race as well. The rubber match of this three-game series, the Rockies and the Cardinals. Edwin Jackson to throw the first pitch when we come back.
The gateway to the West says St. Louis to tourists, and to those who'd rather stay home, preferably on the couch, this city means beer. But the people who live here know better. This town is about baseball.
Yeah, they love their Cardinals here in St. Louis, and they've had so much success, including a World Series championship as recently as 2006. Trying to get back to the postseason this year, but they've got some work to do. 5.5 back of Milwaukee in the National League Central Division, and 5.5 back in the wild card race as well. So it is not going to be easy for Albert Pujols and the Cardinals over the last 6 weeks of the regular season. Of course, Jim Tracy wishes his team was only 5.5 back. They've had some injuries and some underperforming players. So the Rockies right now, who of whom big things were expected before the season, they find themselves 9 games under 500 and 12 back in the National League West. And maybe the biggest problem they've got is they've lost 16 games in a row, Bobby, on Sundays. Can they just decline Sunday games in the 2012 schedule? What's going on with these guys?
It is Sunday today, so they better change their MO.
Maybe playing in the evening will help them instead of playing during the afternoon. Let's check out the starting lineup that Jim Tracy puts out there trying to win on a Sunday, presented as always by Taco Bell. Eric Young is in left field leading off. Mark Ellis, the former Oakland Athletic, batting second and playing second. Carlos Gonzalez is in center field tonight, batting third. Troy Tulowitzki at short. Todd Helton batting fifth, playing first base. Seth Smith in right field batting sixth. Ty Wigginton at third. Chris Iannetta, the catcher, batting eighth. And Esmil Rogers is the starting pitcher tonight for the Colorado Rockies. It is his birthday today. More on that a little bit later on. They will take on Edwin Jackson, one of the key midseason acquisitions, Oral, for the Cardinals this year.
Edwin Jackson, they love his talent, they love his arm. Maybe under the tutelage of Dave Duncan, he will do much better with his consistency. And when he was acquired, it was to bolster this rotation. You see here with the Cardinals, the numbers have been okay. The ERA is actually a point higher than it was in the American League. He needs to become more consistent, especially against leadoff hitters and early in the count.
The numbers for Jackson skewed by one awful start, his second start that he made in a Cardinal uniform. Eric Young's going to lead it off here, and we are ready for baseball at Busch Stadium. Up and away for ball one. Chad Fairchild, the home plate umpire tonight. Young is one of the reasons why people are moving around out in that Colorado outfield. They want to give him a bit of a look, but he's a left fielder, can't play right field, doesn't have the arm. So Carlos Gonzalez has started playing more right field recently. Gonzalez is in center field tonight because Dexter Fowler is out of the lineup. And we got the feeling, talking with Jim Tracy before the game, wherever they put Gonzalez, they feel they've got a plus outfielder. But they're hoping Fowler can hit enough, as he has since his return from the minors, to become the regular center fielder. They'd like to leave Cargo, as he's known, in right field. Jackson strikes out Young. A check of the Cardinal defense this year, which overall has not been very good. Holiday in left. John Jay has become the regular center fielder since the trade of Colby Rasmus. Lance Berkman in right. David Freese at third. Newly acquired Rafael for college short. Skip Schumacher at second. Albert Pujols at first. And Yadier Molina catching Edwin Jackson tonight. Mark Ellis, the batter, and a swing and a high fly ball to left field. Holiday drifting back, quickly running out of room, and it is gone. Ellis with a home run, and Colorado takes an early 1-0 lead.
Orley got the first hitter out. That's been his nemesis.
And he's also been hurt on the first pitch to batters. They're hitting 345 off him on first pitch. And this being the first pitch to Ellis, a fastball right down the middle.
It tailed in just a little. Ellis was ready to attack it. Had great balance. Got firm on the front side. Got his hands in and deposited it into left field.
Third home run as a member of the Rockies for Ellis, picked up earlier this season from Oakland. And here's Carlos Gonzalez. Gonzalez, just a remarkable talent in so many different aspects of the game. Last year won a Silver Slugger, won a Gold Glove, won the batting title, and finished third in MVP balloting. Just a sensational season a year ago for Gonzalez. Not quite the same success this year. Has had a wrist injury, spent some time on the DL. But still putting up some impressive numbers, and you can see down from a year ago, but 336, 34, and 117.
And it's his right wrist, Dan, and talking to Carlo yesterday, he says it bothers him. It's tendonitis. And often he can't hold on to the bat when he's following through. It's ever present, and you can see that at times when he swings, running into the wall is where he hurt this wrist right there. And then when he swings, holding on to the bat with his right hand has caused him some problem, especially on the inside pitch.
And you can see aggravated the injury on a swing subsequent to running into the wall. Spent a couple of weeks on the DL, still hitting .282 with 18 home runs on the season, and hit a 3-run home run last night, helping to power the Rockies to a 6-1 win. Sends this one to left field, and it is going to drop in fair territory and skip up into the seats for a ground rule double. Well, that ball was in the air a long time, and Holiday couldn't get over to make the catch.
Yeah, most left fielders make that play. Matt kind of saw it coming down and decided he wanted no part of it as he got near the stands. He was really hoping it would go foul, but there's not any foul ball territory. I don't know how you stop running and stop playing in the first inning of a ball game.
You can see the look of frustration on the face of Holiday after that ball fell fair, and fell fair by about 3 feet. It's a double for Gonzalez, and here's Tulowitzki. First pitch breaking ball for a strike.
Troy Tulowitzki is up there, and the reason we have live K-Zone up is because he has kind of an Albert Pujols syndrome right now, also trying to carry the team, expand the strike zone. It's up there to see if he swings at strikes and makes Edwin Jackson come in the strike zone and attack him, because when he's carrying the team, he's been going outside the strike zone an awful lot.
It's been described by different people either as just trying too hard, wanting so badly to get that big hit, anxiety, but sometimes in the big situations that Tulowitzki, instead of kind of letting the game come to him, goes out, tries a little bit too hard. Otherwise the numbers would be even bigger. And Jim Tracy telling us before the game he's still growing into the role, just 26 years of age, not a finished product by any means.
As I said in the pre-show, Dan, I think desire actually brings on that anxiety, that he has this desire to please, to live up to the 10-year contract, to be the man. When he is the man, he doesn't need to prove it to anyone. He just has to let the game come to him and do it.
Chases a slider down in the dirt. The count 2-2.
There was the perfect example. First base open. Edwin Jackson knows from the scouting report that he's been swinging at balls outside the strike zone. Yadier Molina also knows that behind the plate. Don't go with a fastball and give in. He's been trying to get himself out. Let's see if he will. And the key to that pitch for me is that it started down the middle. Even though he was bouncing it and kind of pitching around him, he started it down the middle to give him some stimulus to swing the bat. Ended up in a bad place in the dirt.
Wouldn't chase there, and the count full.
I think he would have chased that on 3-2 if he came with the fastball up on 2-2. They wanted to stay with the same program and bounce another. And very often now you'll see a fastball away that they try to catch the corner on if they don't come back with another breaking ball in the dirt.
First start this season for Jackson against Colorado. He's had a miserable time in his career against the Rockies, no matter who he's pitched for. Up the middle, a base hit. Gonzalez around third is getting the wave. The throw from Jay, cut by Pujols. It's an RBI single for Tulowitzki and a 2-0 lead for the Rockies.
There's a nice piece of hitting by Troy, staying on the breaking ball, making sure it was going to be a strike. A slider that's up, a slight mistake from Jackson. You say, okay, 3-2, he needs to throw a strike and not walk him. But now when a guy is in swing mode, you don't necessarily need to throw him a strike. You need to make it look like a strike, like the 2-1 pitch, and end up a ball. Tulowitzki just did an awesome job staying on this pitch.
Yeah, that's the swing we're looking for. You can always notice also he's looking out in front of the plate. The last place he saw that ball, not looking at the plate where he's making contact, but looking 8 feet out in front of the plate. Nice swing, nice production, and he's being the man.
RBI number 82 on the season for Tulowitzki. He is 4th in the National League in that department. And a threat to go. 8 stolen bases on the season. A good start for the Rockies here in St. Louis. Todd Helton is the batter. And we mentioned that Edwin Jackson's had a terrible time in his career with the Colorado Rockies. We're not exaggerating. That's a terrible time. 5 starts in his career and an ERA of over 17.
Well, this is a team that hunts fastball, and that's Edwin Jackson's bread and butter. His off-speed stuff is usually inconsistent. So that is a bad mixture for Edwin Jackson to run into a fastball hitting club.
Oral, you never had an ERA of anywhere close to 17 against a team, but who was your Colorado? What was the team you didn't want to face?
Well, I think the Houston Astros at one time. I think Craig Biggio ended up being the hardest hitter for me to ever get out. Wore the armor and tough right-handed hitter. Sometimes the St. Louis teams on the old AstroTurf are very hard for me because they hit a lot of ground balls and love the sinking fastball.
3-0 the count on Helton.
Well, you know, that fastball was hit for a home run. Ellis put it in the seats, and after that Jackson's become very tentative with his fastball. Even though these guys can hit the fastball, you have to come out throwing it. You have to show them you're going to be confident throwing it, and Edwin has not shown that at all.
Inside, ball 4. So 4 of 5 batters who have come to the plate have reached against Edwin Jackson.
And Tony La Russa had our meeting before the game. He said, you know what, the batting order is back together. Berkman's healthy, Holiday, Pujols is starting to get hot. Furcal is here at the top of the order, but the key to us streaking to catch the Milwaukee Brewers is starting pitching. It's a long night when you don't have a good starter, and it's really hard to put a win streak together if the guys that start the game don't get you off to a good start.
They've dealt all season, of course, with the loss of Adam Wainwright, who has not pitched at all this year due to injury. Chris Carpenter got off to a slow start by his standards this year. Breaking ball for a strike to Seth Smith. Getting a start in right field tonight, hitting .285 with a dozen home runs. He's had the power stroke going recently, 3 homers in the last week.
Changeup right there at 87. The breaking ball and changeup, but
You still are looking for the confidence in the fastball. The foundation of pitching and the foundation of Edwin Jackson's arsenal is his fastball. It's mid-90s. Some movement. Needs to locate it better.
Tulowitzki at second, Helton at first, just one out. And Smith pops it up for Call, is racing out into shallow left field and makes a good running catch. Covered a lot of ground for out number 2.
You know, the way Dan Halladay went after that ball, I think he's a little injured. That's 2 balls that he got slow jumps on and really never extended his stride going after high fly balls. And Halladay is a better outfielder than that. And I mean, this is Raphael playing left field.
Well, Holladay's been favoring a lower back issue. Suffered a slight back injury apparently in a weight room incident on a Wednesday. Missed a couple of days, has been playing through it since, but still not back to 100%. Here's Ty Wigginton.
It was actually the way Raphael went after that ball. He almost knew he had to cover for him.
Yes.
You know, he broke right away like I am the left fielder on this ball. He did not anticipate the left fielder being involved in that play at all.
And today we saw Dan Uggla's batting streak ended with a very good play in right field. And here you have Raphael Furcal covering a lot of ground, over 100 feet, making a very good catch on a ball in left field.
An upgrade to the shortstop position for the Cardinals since they picked him up from the Dodgers. Ryan Theriot now platooning at second base. 1-2 the count on Wigginton. Still a dangerous hitter, can play multiple positions as he faces Edwin Jackson here. The Rockies with 2 runs across in the top of the first. Thought Wigginton might be a July 31st trade candidate, a contender to pick up a veteran right-handed bat who can play different spots. But he's still a Rocky. Got a piece and he stays alive.
I had Ty as a rookie with the New York Mets, and he came with the tag, he'll run through a wall for you. He's a guy you want 25 just like, and he'll play any position at any time to do what's best for the team. And that's what's kept him in the big leagues, and with 14 home runs and 44 RBIs, he's continued to do a good job.
Up and in with a fastball, 2-2 on the 28th pitch that Edwin Jackson has had to throw here in the first inning.
I'll tell you what, as much as you say he run through a wall for you, he did not give in on that fastball in at all. This is after 2 breaking balls away. I'll tell you what, that was an amazing take. Breaking ball away, borderline could have been a strike. Breaking the ball away, he fouls off, it's low and away, and right here you see he is going out away, thinking they're going to break ball. He did not give an inch on this until the very end. If it would have got farther away from Edwin Jackson,
he would have eaten it.
It would have been dangerous. He turned the wrong way. You're supposed to turn away from the ball when you feel like it's coming at your head. Lucky.
In the dirt, the count is full now on Wigginton. Jackson's already given up a home run to Mark Ellis. Tulowitzki drove into Gonzalez with an RBI single. Runners at first and second, 2 down, and both Tulowitzki and Helton will be on the move with the pitch.
I think he's going to throw a 3-2 slider, and if he misses, Dave Duncan will be out there to try to give him a breather to get out of this inning. Lied. 3-2 fastball. The tie was right on that inside corner.
Dave Duncan looking for answers in that binder of his to figure out what Edwin Jackson can use to get out Ty Wigginton. The 9th pitch of the at-bat upcoming, the 32nd pitch of the first inning for Edwin Jackson as Wigginton continues to battle.
Well, again, we have a hitter that's in swing mode. 3-2, Bobby. I think it is a slider, but throw it right down the middle, make it end up a ball. I think he swings and misses.
Runners go. Slider in the dirt, ball 4, bases loaded. And as you said, here comes Dave Duncan.
Now, this is a conversation, one, to get his head straight on thinking about the next hitter and not the scoreboard and what's happened in the past, telling him that if he gets out of this inning, we have 9 innings to catch up and we have plenty of offense to do it. And it's also an idea that one breather might be what he needs in order to get the 8th place hitter out and get his team in the dugout.
Dave Duncan has done it for many years of bringing along talented young men and teaching them the finer points of pitching and schooling them. It's one of the reasons they traded here for Edwin Jackson, not only for this year and this pennant drive, but for the future in Duncan's tutelage.
Jackson will work from the full windup with the bases loaded. There are 2 outs in the inning, and here's the catcher, Chris Iannetta. And he just missed. Jackson did with a fastball for ball 1.
When you're all over the place, you're not going to get the close calls, and you have to work your way back into the middle of the plate. That's good news for a hitter.
They're having some pretty good rips at whatever Jackson is throwing tonight.
Well, he hasn't been able to spot the fastball away at all. His only strikes are on that inside part of the plate, exactly where Ellis found his pitch and hit it for a home run. His breaking ball has had no command and just backing up half the time.
Oral, how much of a physical toll does it take on you to throw 35 pitches in an inning?
The physical toll is not that bad right now at the beginning of the game. Where it'll come into play is about the 3rd inning. He'll go in and get a rest. He'll feel better about getting out of this inning if he does. But I don't see a commitment at the very end, at the moment of truth in his delivery, where he is really attacking the hitter emotionally and physically. It looks like physically he's engaged, but emotionally it does not look like he's committing to the pitch.
He's been out on the mound for 20 minutes.
It can get really between your ears when a team has dominated you with an ERA over 15 in your career. In the short time you've been here, you start wondering, do they have my pitches? Am I giving my stuff away? Can I really get these guys out, or is this going to be my nemesis for my whole career? And you really have to fight through the demons and attack.
Needs a swing and miss here.
And it gets it. Finally out of the inning. The Rockies leave them loaded, but they get 2 runs off Jackson. Albert Pujols coming up 3rd in the bottom of the 1st. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun. And in part by Mazda. Zoom zoom. Bottom of the 1st inning here at Busch Stadium. Dan Shulman to Bobby Valentine. Oral Hershiser. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. A 2-0 lead for the Rockies over the Cardinals as we show you the starting lineup for St. Louis tonight. Presented by Taco Bell. Rafael Furcal will lead it off and play short. John Jay in center field batting 2nd. Albert Pujols at first base batting 3rd. Matt Holliday in the cleanup spot at left field. Lance Berkman having a great year in right field batting 5th. David Freese playing 3rd and batting 6th. Yadier Molina in the number 7 spot. He's the catcher. Skip Schumacher at second base batting 8th. And Edwin Jackson, the starting pitcher, batting 9th. On the mound tonight, celebrating his 26th birthday today for Colorado is right-hander Esmil Rogers.
Esmil Rogers, a 4-pitch mix guy with the curveball, slider, and change. Jim Tracy says that the changeup is a key pitch for the young man. Let's see his last 3 appearances, the Ubaldo Jimenez trade, where he has taken over in the rotation. He's done very well.
Has a good live fastball among other pitches as he starts for call with a strike. Call hitting just 209. But still showing the athleticism, the range, the defense. We saw some of that in the top half of the inning. A guy that Tony La Russa admitted he has always liked, never been able to get, although Furcal almost signed here as a free agent a few years ago before going to Los Angeles.
Tony knows he has a contact staff, and this is the type of player that he needed to pick the ball up in the middle of the infield. He's doing just that for the team.
Checks the swing on the appeal to third. That's confirmed. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Now the count on for call. Look at all the changes for the Cardinals. Jackson, the starting pitcher tonight for call. John Jay becoming the full-time regular out in center field after the trade of Colby Rasmus. Mark Zepchinski, Octavio Dotel added to the bullpen. Outside, a full count. And Arthur Rhodes is a newcomer to St. Louis now. The 41-year-old left-hander is now a member of their bullpen. So a lot of changes in recent weeks. Thursday in a game between the Cardinals and the Brewers, a game the Cardinals really had to have to avoid a sweep. For call, led off the game with a home run against Giovanni Gallardo. Takes down low for ball 4. Rogers is a former infielder, Oral, a shortstop when he was signed as a 16-year-old, was converted to a pitcher in rookie ball 5 years ago. And I love it when we talk this week, without knowing, you hadn't done the paperwork yet, you had just seen him on video, you could tell this guy, or you suspected he was a former infielder who'd been converted to a pitcher. What was it?
I was just scouting him, and I just saw the mechanics, and they looked raw to me, and I just said, this guy looks like a conversion guy to me, an outstanding arm that really has not had a lot of reps on the mound. And then we get to our meeting here yesterday, and Buster Only and Bobby Valentine, who had done a little deeper, told me about that.
Batter John Jay. Jay was starting to get a lot more playing time. Colby Rasmus was struggling. Jay was hitting well. And now Jay has become the center fielder. Albert Pujols waiting on deck. Now Jay, who had been hitting very well, has not hit as well since the trade of Rasmus. .228 over 17 games. Fouls it back 1-1.
And as far as Jay's approach is concerned, Tony alluded before the game to the fact that he has a lot of moving parts. He does hold his hands a little low with an open stance, and he has to time his lifting of the bat with the lifting of the leg, getting it down on time. I think he's a good hitter.
Tony La Russa's always favored somebody in that 2 spot with a little pop, somebody who can hurt you. Said back in the day, Larry Walker hit second for him sometimes. Matt Holliday even hit second for a short spell while with the Cardinals. And John Jay doesn't quite have that kind of pop, but he can hurt you. Rogers very concerned with Furcal over at first base.
He really likes a guy who can hunt the fastball and drive it into the gaps, because you get this situation and the pitcher catcher worried about the runner going, throwing a lot of fastballs.
Did he go? Yes, he did, says Paul Schreiber down at third. Jay strikes out. That seems to be the sentiment here in St. Louis. Sign him and sign him now. But if there are any talks going on, it's quite a bit behind the scenes, awfully quiet. And it sounds like Pujols will go into free agency. Then the Cardinals will get in line with everybody else and hope to retain their superstar. Well, we talked a little bit earlier about how teams are trying to pitch Pujols these days.
More fastballs than ever, and mostly inside to get him sped up. And Albert has also wanted to kind of put the Cardinals on his back and expanded his strike zone. Some advice from Mark McGwire lately in the last few weeks, get him to be more patient. 1 for 2 with a couple walks would be better than 1 for 4, you going outside the zone. And Albert has taken some of that advice to heart. And it's a rarity to hear Albert even talk about advice from a hitting coach. Mark McGwire Tremendous power hitter in his own right.
No doubt about that one. Pujols goes deep to tie the game. National League leading 29th home run of the season for Albert Pujols. The Cardinals have tied it. Now Holiday. A fearsome middle of the lineup for the Cardinals, the best offensive team in the National League this year. With Pujols, then Holiday, and then Lance Berkman. And Albert had been in a real rut, broke out with 4 hits on Thursday in that big game. The win over Milwaukee, had a home run in that game, had 2 hits Friday, now a home run here to lead off Sunday. And Rogers a little erratic now with his next 3 pitches.
Well, the adrenaline was pumping when he took the mound, and he had good pacing, attacking the hitters. But once you get pinned in your ears, and Albert Pujols makes you pay, maybe a little bit of overthrowing right now.
Ball 4.
Well, you get the 2-0 lead, and then you give up a walk, and then you throw Albert a fastball down the middle at 95. I just love the way Albert transfers his weight and gets totally off of his back foot. Foot's off the ground about 2 inches when he makes contact. He talks about going down and through the ball. His hands go down, his back goes through, but it's on the way up when it makes contact. And that's why it goes 450 feet.
That's a long way in this ballpark. Lance Berkman, the batter. He was tied with Pujols for the National League lead in home runs still just a couple minutes ago. One of the comments that Albert made to Pedro Gomez before the game, Pedro asked him about, your numbers aren't quite what they have been in the first 10 years of your career. And Pujols answered and said, a lot of guys would love to have my numbers. I mean, he's not having a typical Albert Pujols season, but he's got 29 homers, 75 RBIs, hitting in the 280s with 6 weeks to go, having spent time on the DL.
He has set the bar so high that when he doesn't jump over his own bar, he's still an elite player.
High in the air to left center field. And Young will make the catch. Berkman retired 2 down.
I found it a little interesting talking with Tony La Russa before the game, how he, instead of talking about Albert and possibly winning this season and catching the Brewers, talked about Albert wanting to hit 300, wanting to get his 30 home runs, and wanting to get his 100 RBIs, which has been his benchmark in the 10 years that he played. And I think Tony realizes if Albert gets his, then Tony gets his.
Exactly.
There's David Freese. A 2-2 tie, an eventful first inning, top and bottom here in St. Louis. And a good breaking ball for a strike to Freese, who is the Cardinal third baseman. Described by his manager as a tiger before the game. A guy who, the bigger the moment, the more intense the moment is, the more he wants to be in that moment, the more he thrives.
Had a lot of Tiger artifacts in Tony's office. Thought maybe Jim Leland was coming by or something.
I think Jim sent him a few things.
Very close friends, Tony La Russa, Jim Leland.
I think one of the Tigers in there outweighed Buster Olney.
To right center field, trouble. Getting the wave around third, Holiday. Play at the plate, not in time. The Cardinals lead.
struggling to keep the ball down. This ball elevated and out over the plate. Both pitchers here tonight so far have had trouble executing their fastball. Holliday, who had trouble running in left field, once he gets his stride and his confidence in his back, but you can see he's almost like somebody is pulling him backwards as he's trying to run forward. He's guarding his back muscles almost by locking them up and trying to run. But it was the best he's run so far. The base is a little freer than he was on defense. Might hurt him to stop.
I agree.
Hot hitter Yadier Molina at the plate now for the Cardinals. They have answered the 2 runs by the Rockies with 3 of their own in the bottom of the first. By the way, the home run distance given on the Pujols homer, 465 feet.
Missed it by 15 feet. Darn. Got to get my eyes checked.
You sold them short again. You underestimated Pujols. 465 feet deep to left field. Up to the back of the seats, up on the concourse, under the big Macland sign to the right of the stadium sports bar sign.
You know, I was a third base coach with the Mets when Jose Oquenda was a player, and that's exactly the way I used to send him around. Run right down the line with him as long as I don't have responsibility following up. And there's Jose, who's a very fine shortstop. Don't let the body fool you in his own right.
The 2-1 to Molina. And he hooks the ball into left field, a base hit. Freese will come in to score. Molina's on his way to second with a double. And it is 4-2 for the Cardinals.
Time for that Colorado dugout to stop spectating and start coaching.
And here comes Bob Apodaca, the pitching coach. Or maybe not.
When you get a pitch away and you get the bat out there, you could hook it, and Molina does just that. He hooks it down the line. See, he's a little out in front of this ball, catches the ball on the way up. Proverbial hook and keep it fair. That's about where you have to hit it for Molina to get a double, where no one's within 100 feet of it.
And now the intentional walk to Skip Schumacher with the pitcher on deck. So far in the first inning, we have had 6 runs, 6 hits, and by the end of this intentional walk, we will have had, 66 pitches thrown by Jackson and Rogers. Matt Holliday walked and scored, came in on the Freese double. Albert Pujols, the home run, by the way, the longest recorded home run in this ballpark's history. Only been around a few years, but still 465 is 465. Now that guy didn't hit in this ballpark.
When that guy hit him, you didn't measure him. You went and tried to find him. Unbelievable how far he used to hit the ball.
Esmil Rogers, who had been pitching very well in his last 3 appearances, 2 of them starts and then a long relief appearance prior to that, tonight has given up 4 runs in just 2/3 of an inning. Facing his counterpart, Edwin Jackson. And Jackson is 3 for 8 swinging the bat this year.
Both these pitchers could swing the bat. Just don't know if they're going to be around to get many at-bats in this game. Either one of them.
Ground ball to short, and the inning is over. But the Cardinals respond with 4 runs in the bottom of the first, 2 of them on a 465-foot home run by El Hombre, Albert Pujols. A 6-run, 69-pitch first inning between the Rockies and the Cardinals. St. Louis leading 4-2 as we go to the top of the second. And the only player not to bat in the first inning for either team, Esmil Rogers, the pitcher and obviously number 9 hitter for the Rockies, leads it off. A former infielder, and he's swinging the bat like he used to be a position player. Trying to bunt for a base hit. And he beats it out.
Well, that's a great bunt. What you want to do is direct the ball first and deaden it second. And he dropped his right foot back and pointed the head of the bat down the first base line. That creates the angle. Then the ball goes right where he wants to go. Freese makes a good play in stepping through this ball, fielding it off the left, throwing off his right, but safe at first. Very well executed play on both sides, except for Freese probably was playing too deep to begin with.
Now Freese in on the grass with leadoff hitter Eric Young up there. Up and away, ball 1. Young's dad spent several years playing with Colorado. Played over 400 games in a Rockies uniform. Was an all-star with Colorado back 1 year in the 90s. Left center field. Jay racing back and finally runs it down just shy of the warning track. That ball had some carry on it. Well, before the game, something we should update you on. Rich Dower, the third base coach for the Rockies, that's him behind the screen at first base. The Rockies were working on a double play drill. Chris Nelson throws the ball from second base and hits Dower in the face, breaking his nose. Dower was helped off the field and was taken to the hospital for observation. So he is not with the team right now. And apparently just some miscommunication between Dower and Nelson as to what drill exactly they were working on. Glenn Allen Hill, normally the first base coach, has gone to third base. Marv Foley, who's a catching coach for the Rockies, is filling in at first base. But Bobby Norman, you guys can attest to it's a finely choreographed situation before the game when balls are being hit and balls are being thrown and there's a lot going on. And obviously just Nelson was thinking one thing and Dower was thinking the other thing. Really, it's amazing this kind of thing doesn't happen more often with everything that's happened.
Well, and Rich Dower, a great second baseman in his own right, has thrown many of those balls from second base. I'm really surprised he wasn't attentive.
Yeah, I used to do that as a starting pitcher, come in and help the infielders because a lot of times they want to get ready to hit, or one's taking ground balls, the other one wants a feed at second base or first base. So there is a lot of traffic going on. You have to stay on your toes.
Unfortunately, it appears the injury, we know it's a broken nose. Hopefully nothing more serious than that. Again at the hospital for observation right now is Rich Dower. There's ball 4 to Mark Ellis. The Rockies got a terrible scare just a few days ago, much more serious, when one of their own pitchers, Juan Nicasio, was hit by a batted ball off the bat of Ian Desmond of Washington and suffered a fractured vertebrae. And there is a lot of hope that he will be able to resume his career, hopefully before too long. But everybody who was on the field describes this as one of the scariest situations they have ever seen. Hit near the temple on the right side of his head, suffered a broken vertebrae. You can see how Todd Helton, Jim Tracy field, taken off on a stretcher. Nicasio is now out of the hospital, and there was some talk actually that he might go visit the team at the ballpark tomorrow when they get back home, but no timetable set for him to return as a baseball player. But our thoughts go out to Nicasio, hopefully on his way to a full recovery. Scary, scary moment. A 4-2 lead for the Cardinals, top of the second, 2 on with a 1 out for Colorado, as Jackson has given up a bunt single and a walk this inning and faces now Carlos Gonzalez, who doubled to left last inning.
Cargo took an 0-2 pitch yesterday, about 4 inches off the plate away into right center for a home run.
He's an exceptional hitter. The balance, the quickness in the bat, his approach. You know, there are guys that you just come out to watch play, and then there's guys you would pay to see play, and this is one of them as an ex-big leaguer. Just a joy to watch his approach in the game, his talent.
Broken a back grounder back to the mound, speared by Jackson to second one and on to first, double play. Great job by Jackson with a big piece of the bat winding right on the mound. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. The Arch here in downtown St. Louis. Maybe some folks up there getting a bird's eye view. You can go up inside the Arch. All the way up to the top. And there they are, getting a view of the game from the Arch. Rafael for call, drives the ball deep right center and caught at the wall by Carlos Gonzalez. Boy, gliding back and making a difficult play almost look easy.
I love this guy in center field. He knows time and space. He knows where he is. Has a perfect angle on this ball. Gets the warning track, makes the leap, hits the wall as he catches the ball. Fabulous player.
Ideally, as we mentioned, Jim Tracy does not want Gonzalez in center. They're hoping that Dexter Fowler, who's been swinging a much better bat since he came back from the minors, will continue to be their regular center fielder. He's not in the lineup tonight. John Jay hooks the ball foul down the right side. They either want Gonzalez in right field, where they can take advantage of his strong arm, or in left field to cover the most spacious part of Coors Field. But as you can see tonight, Bob, you can put him in any one of the three spots, and he's going to play some great defense. Swing and a miss. Jay is gone for the second time tonight.
Yeah, Dan, every time I've seen him play center field, he's looked like he was born to play center field, and that play was no exception.
And remember, he just grounded into the double play where he had his bat busted in half. He's not out there pouting. He was right on that pitch with a great break.
Now Pujols. Hit a 465-foot home run. If you weren't with us last inning, a two-run shot to deep left field. 29th of the season. Where our camera is from the shot you are seeing right now is where the ball landed off the bat of Pujols.
Well, he opened the broadcast talking about Albert and being more disciplined on the fastball in. Has not seen one yet tonight.
Didn't go.
Country Joe West at first base. Spent a little time with Joe last night over at Mike Shannon's restaurant. He was in wonderful, wonderful mood.
That is the pitch that Albert has been chasing. The conversation with Mark McGwire to start laying off that. Don't carry the team on a ball. Wait him to come in the strike zone and then attack like he did in his first at bat.
3-1 curveball is low for ball four. For those who weren't with us in the bottom of the first inning when Pujols hit the home run, here's another look. Takes over the National League lead with his 29th home run of the season, one ahead of his teammate Lance Berkman. Matt Holliday fouls one off.
Oral Rogers has good stuff, but as you mentioned so aptly in our pre-game meeting, he lets the hitters see the ball so early that it's almost impossible for a swing and miss. The ball has to bounce for the hitter to swing and miss because they're on every fastball and can see the break ball early.
His first movement when he leaves the rubber is to immediately start falling towards first base, which then allows his whole arm swing as he separates his hands, the glove and his throwing hand, to be seen by the hitter. So when he throws the ball, even though he throws it in the mid-90s, it feels like 90. He is the opposite of sneaky fast. Sneaky fast is when you hide the ball and it's a surprise to the hitter. This is visually easy to see. As he grows as a pitcher, he'll learn to keep his head on the right side of his body as you see him in there in the stretch, more towards third base, over his belly button, which will keep his front side closed longer, and we'll guard the ball from the hitter, and he'll be more of a mystery. As he lifts his leg and starts to leave the rubber and come towards the hitter, he immediately, you see the weight transfer towards first base. He opens up and you see everything from the arm swing out the back to the whole release. And to a big league hitter, you could throw it 100 miles an hour with that delivery and it would not fool them.
See it early, hit it hard.
Pitch in the dirt, swing and a miss. Holiday is gone and the inning is over. At the end of 2, the Cardinals lead the Rockies 4-2. A Baseball Tonight update on the other side of this break.
Steve Berthiaume here in our Baseball Tonight studios. The Braves' Dan Uggla had his hit streak ended 33 games this afternoon in Atlanta against the Cubs. Uggla, it's his first game without a base hit since July 4th. His average went from 173 to 232 over the streak. Darwin Barney, with that sensational catch, took a base hit away. Otherwise, Uggla would be sitting at 34 games right now. A bizarre day in Arizona for the Diamondbacks' Jason Marquis against the Mets. He's hit by an Angel Pagan liner in the third. He stayed in the game, threw 13 more pitches, including an at-bat with what turned out to be a fractured right fibula. Back to St. Louis.
Tough break for the Diamondbacks, who are leading the National League West right now. 2 games over San Francisco. The Cardinals lead the Rockies 4-2 as we go to the top of the third here at Busch Stadium. The Diamondbacks have to be considered maybe the biggest surprise into baseball this year. The leaders of the National League West, a much improved bullpen, and big years from Justin Upton and Ian Kennedy. 15-3 Ian Kennedy, who incidentally a couple of years ago was part of the same trade that Edwin Jackson was a part of, as Troy Tulowitzki leads off the inning for Colorado. Rockies down 4-2. Tulowitzki with an RBI single his first time up. It was a trade between Detroit, Arizona, and the Yankees, the Curtis Granderson deal, for lack of a better name. And Edwin Jackson, who is apparently trying to be traded to all 30 teams before the end of his major league career, was traded with Ian Kennedy by Detroit to Arizona. Kennedy's gone on to become a big winner this year. Jackson is now pitching for his 6th different major league team. Dodgers, Rays, Tigers, Diamondbacks, White Sox, and now Cardinals. He was also on paper a Blue Jay for a couple of hours when he went from the White Sox to Toronto before getting traded from Toronto to St. Louis in the Colby Rasmus trade.
Well, Dan,
2-2 the
everybody is excited about Jackson's talent, and they scout him and they say, yeah, good piece in the trade. Love the arm, love the way he can spin the ball. I really think that when he looks in for the target and he equates the count with the type of pitch he needs to throw, he does not see the right pattern. He doesn't see exactly where he wants to go and exactly where he should miss.
Ooh, up and in, and bailing out is Tulowitzki. The count is full. That ball hit the brick wall behind the backstop and ricocheted all the way back out to the mound.
And just missed the chin of Troy Tulowitzki.
He's going out, staying in, staying in. No, it's a fastball, and at the last minute gets out of the way. He was not defaulting to personal safety. He was defaulting to swinging the bat correctly, and at the very last second, or we should say 1/8 of a second, gave in and got out of the way.
Second fastball that's run up and in from Jackson already. Buzzed Ty Wigginton back in the first inning.
I don't think that's by choice. He just falls off that ball a little, tries to put a little extra on it. The ball goes up and in the right-handers. When he learns to put a little extra on and throw him low and away to right-handers, he's going to be dynamite.
The thing that you realize as a pitcher, when I talk about what Jackson's vision of his pitches should be, you don't usually shoot a rifle out there. You shoot a shotgun, that you have kind of a spray with each pitch, and you know where you want it to be, but you also know where your spray is going to be if you're slightly off. And he needs to kind of calculate that I'm not going to always hit the target perfectly. Where's my spray? So you can go down the middle and have the ball leak to the corner in certain counts. You can go for the corner and have it leak off the plate in other counts.
Lined into center field, another base hit for Tulowitzki. Juggled a little bit by Jay, but no damage done.
When his first at bat, he got the breaking ball with a man in scoring position. He's right there to hit it back up the middle. You see that the ball gets in that invisible zone. You stop looking at the ball and you look where you saw it last. It's a very nice swing. And here on the high fastball, he gets it, and once again, he'll be looking out in front of the plate to put a good swing on it.
One of the great young talents in the game, again, just 26 years of age, a notorious second half hitter, and that has been the case again here this season.
Todd Helton, one of the better inside out hitters to play the game in the last 20 years. He perfected the ability to hit the ball to left field and hit it hard when the ball's thrown in or out. Can also pull the breaking ball with some authority.
Helton not hitting for power like he once used to, but still putting up solid numbers at the first base position, hitting over 300. Got 13 homers. Very good doubles hitter, has driven in over 60 runs this year. And Tracy says he needs to rest him every now and again, day game after a night game or after an overnight flight or something like that. But still productive.
On my way into the Colorado clubhouse yesterday, Peyton Manning was on his way out. Peyton Manning happened to work out with the Rockies during the strike. That's where he had to show up. The owners wouldn't let him work with their own trainers, so he's working with the Colorado Rockies trainers. He and Todd are good friends, and Peyton says he needs a few more weeks to get ready, and I said, you got it. Take all 4 of them.
Good take there by Helton, and the count is 3 balls and a strike. And that's how he knows Peyton Manning. Go back to their football days at the University of Tennessee. Seems to have worked out pretty well for Mr. Helton choosing baseball. Some people feel that when it's all said and done, Helton's going to be in the Hall of Fame conversation. See how many more years he plays and how he can add to his totals. Over 2,300 hits at this point. Still got that football in his blood, though, huh?
Well, he was a good runner. Peyton's a great thrower. And this looks like it didn't get autographed. Someone missed a great opportunity yesterday.
Let's see if Tulowitzki's on the move from first. Nobody out. A full count on Helton. 4-2 Cardinals. The Rockies batting in the top of the 3rd. Not going. And Helton chases and is gone. Coverage of Major League Baseball continues on both ESPN and ESPN2. First on a Monday Night Baseball tomorrow night, the Giants face the Braves, 7 Eastern on ESPN2. And then Wednesday night at 7 here on ESPN. It'll be the Diamondbacks in Philadelphia taking on the Phillies. Both games also available online at ESPN3.com. Well, we talked about the Diamondbacks, 2 games ahead of the Giants. Kirk Gibson, former teammate of yours, the manager of Arizona. What do you know about the philosophy and the attitude that he's brought to the desert this year?
Well, never say die, and right from spring training, no excuses, just win, and that was the way Gibby took the field. Even if he was going to go 1 for 4 that night, that one was going to cause damage and help a win. He was always looking for answers as a player, and he does that as a manager.
Did you think, back in your Dodger playing days, did you ever project Kirk Gibson as a major league manager?
Very intelligent player. Some people, maybe the way he went about the game, didn't think that he would be calm enough and be able to communicate. But as he's gotten older, he got a little calmer. He was a bench coach for a while. He's always been a very intelligent player, knew how to break down the game, break down the hitting, break down the running game, understood pitching from a distance.
Hot shot down to first. Pujols. 1, 2. Seth Smith hits it hard, but a right at Pujols. 3-6-3. Inning ending. Double play. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by Sears Blue Lawn and Garden Crew. Compare all the ways Sears beats Home Depot and Lowe's for the right to be on your lawn. And Verizon, the destination for tablets powered by 4G LTE. With Oral Hershiser, Bobby Valentine, Pedro Gomez, and Buster Olney. Dan Schulman with you at Busch Stadium. Bottom of the third, Cardinals 4, Rockies 2. Milwaukee won earlier today. The team the Cardinals are trying to chase down in the National League Central. They beat Pittsburgh 2-1 in 10 innings today. That's Berkman leading it off for the Cardinals. And right now Milwaukee is as hot as anybody. They have won 16 out of 18 games. There's ball 4 as Berkman draws a leadoff walk.
When you feel the ground ball, you start down and come up, and then the easy thing to do to get your feet turned properly is turn toward your glove side. So you start down with the glove so you can come up and get the ball, and then you turn toward your glove side so you can get your feet in position to make a good throw to second base. Albert did that extremely well.
And Furcal returned the favor. He's still got a cannon of an arm from the shortstop position. Here's David Freese. They have turned more double plays than any team in the National League. Now, Furcal's a relative newcomer to the team, and Orel, as you well know, that may have to do with the pitching staff as much as the infield defense, especially with Dave Duncan preaching the two-seam fastball, get your ground balls. That can help, right?
Well, Rafael Furcal, Dave Duncan asked these pitchers to keep the ball down, throw strikes, look to pitch to contact, not to strike out unless you need it. And he is an exceptional defender still, and the quickness is still there. Not only the arm, but he's got good range, as we've seen on the pop-up here tonight. And deep shortstop, shallow left field.
With all the changes the Cardinals have made, and they have made many, and some of the injured players they have gotten back, they have still got quite a deficit, as we mentioned, to try to catch Milwaukee. The good news for them is they've got 6 games left with the Brewers. So playing the team you're chasing, you have a chance to really make up some ground. But the bad news is Milwaukee's won 8 out of 12 from St. Louis this year.
And the other good news, before they play Milwaukee again, they play Pittsburgh, the Dodgers, the Cubs, and Pittsburgh again. So they could shorten this lead that they have to make up and get within 2 games, or maybe even closer to that if they get hot. They have not had a 5-game winning streak, the Cardinals, the entire season. It's probably time for them to do that. And if they do, you know, what goes up must come down. And right now, Milwaukee is up 16 out of 18.
I remember you saying in our first game this year, and there's Milwaukee right now up 5.5, the hottest team in baseball. Swing and a miss, and Freese is gone. I remember you saying in our first week, nobody's as good as you think they are when they're hot. Nobody's as bad as you think they are when they're not. And Milwaukee, they're good.
Very good.
But they've got to cool off eventually, right?
So did San Francisco. So did Pittsburgh. So did every team in baseball other than the Boston Red Sox, because they couldn't cool off from the horrible start that they had. They got that out of the way early.
But the Phillies haven't cooled off.
They're going to have
gotten
one.
Better. You
I'll
think
bet
so?
you they have one.
Okay.
Somehow, even with that pitching staff.
Towards the mean.
Well, that's what you say. Even with that pitching staff.
Well, we'll see.
Well, we'll see.
I don't think either of those two teams are going to cool off. Milwaukee or Philly.
You know, somebody in Denver right now is saying, I know one team that didn't cool off for a long time, and that's the Colorado Rockies of 2007.
They cooled off as soon as they got beat. They went 20. They went 23 out of 24, and they got swept.
What they in the World Series by Boston.
Yeah.
Actually, 21 out of 22.
21
they
out
won,
of 22.
They won 11 in a row in September. Then they lost one. Then they won 2 more to force a 1-game playoff, which they won. So that's 14 out of 15 to end the regular season.
Yes.
Then they swept the Phillies in the division series. Then they swept the Diamondbacks in the NLCS.
And they had to wait 9 days.
Then they had 9 days, and then they got swept by the Red Sox in the World Series.
I'll bet if they had another 2 weeks to play, they would have won 1 game, just like Jim Tracy was saying when they went 1-14.
Well, let's deal with the facts. Let's not deal with
what
your
I bet
fantasy.
Well, we'll see. Those hot teams are going to go at least 3-7, if not 2-8, in one 10-game stretch between now and the end of the year.
The batter is Molina. 4-2 Cardinals, bottom third. But Milwaukee's really got it going on right now. Their defense has improved. Their starting pitching is very good, and with the likes of Braun and Fielder, McGee, and others, they can really swing the bats.
Gallardo, Greinke,
Markham.
Very good team. Playing extremely well.
K-Rod in the 8th, John Axford in the 9th.
Corey Hart.
Doing all this damage without Ricky Weeks at second base, too.
Yep.
Neither of those teams will go 2-8, Dan.
Over
any 10
stretch?
games.
No?
Except if you tried to alternate the games and just find wins and losses throughout the calendar.
What about if a team goes 44-15 at home? What does that tell you about them? That's pretty impressive.
It's going to be hard to go 2-8. That's what it tells me.
And the best ERA in the National League since the All-Star break.
It's really good. It really is good.
When it's your point, you're emphatic. When it's our point, you're just blah.
I'm just guessing. I think that's a great. They're really a good team. He's going.
Throw down in plenty of time.
You know, Dan, I will give Bobby one thing. At 30 for Dan Uggla's hit streak, we're on Baseball Tonight, and they said, "What do you think?" And I said 37 because he had 2 pretty good hits down there in Miami that he got away with on infield ground balls at short. I thought, oh, the luck won't run out for a while. Bobby said 33. Mark it down. And he was
at 32. It was coming.
You hit it right on.
And thanks to Darwin Barney, you nailed it. He made a great catch.
And that was a great throw. You know, to throw Lance Berkman out at second base, who had a runaway jump. Rogers paid no attention to him at all. Had a great jump. Had a pretty good lead. And was out easily at second base. Laser down there.
Iannetta throwing him out. Berkman now 0 for 4 this year stealing bases. He's running on an 0-2 pitch. He likes playing baseball, doesn't he? He's always in a good mood at the ballpark.
Someone's asking him, how about 5 years for 5 years before? Are you safe on that?
Well, and they also asking him about a head-first slide with the shoulder injury that he's had and he came back from, that he was guarding when we were last here a week ago.
Exactly.
And now they're diving. So Tony checks on him to see, what are you doing? You know, 0-2, you're trying to steal a bag for us. Great. But then trainer checks on him, but what are you doing sliding head first and then also trying a deke slide onto the shoulders? That we need you in the lineup.
Molina draws the walk. That is the 6th walk given up by Esmil Rogers. One of them is intentional, but 5 unintentional walks allowed in 2 2/3 innings. This is the young man who has stepped into the rotation spot formerly occupied by Ubaldo Jimenez. Now with Cleveland. In fact, it was Rogers who took over for Jimenez in the 2nd inning of the game when the trade was consummated. Remember, Jimenez took the mound, started pitching.
Through 32 pitches, thinking that he was traded.
They pulled him out of the game after an inning. Rogers took over, went 5 very good innings, has made 2 good starts since then. But he has struggled with his command tonight. Has also given up the home run to Pujols. Skip Schumacher, the batter. And he grounds one through the right side, a base hit. Boy, it's a big if, but if Berkman stays put, doesn't try to steal a base, this inning has a whole different feeling to it. Now it's 2 on, but 2 out, and the pitcher coming up. The Cardinals lead the Rockies 4-2. We're in the bottom of the 3rd inning here at Busch Stadium. St. Louis winning Friday night 6-1. Colorado winning last night 6-1. And now here's Jackson, a good hitter, up with runners at first and second and 2 down.
Your infielders in this situation play very deep. The pitcher will be running. You don't want the ball to get through with 2 outs, but touch that outfield grass to give up that hit.
You see the outfield playing at regular depth with now right fielder coming in slightly because Molina's on second base. You're going to get a shot at him at home plate regardless of where you're playing, as long as you can charge a single if it's hit through the infield. Seth Smith in right field knows a fastball will probably be coming in his direction, so he shortened up a little and he'll be ready to make his best throw.
Very rarely do you see where almost every infielder is trying to creep back to the grass. You know it's got to be a pitcher up, 2 outs in a scoring situation. Deep and trying to keep it in the infield.
Pretty raw young pitcher here that Bob Apodaca is getting to work with, huh? Hey, Oral?
Yeah, he's got an exceptional arm, and the delivery for me looks like a reliever if they can straighten the delivery out and start hiding the ball from the hitter. But with multiple reps against the lineup, second, third, fourth time around in the order, it's going to be hard for him to disguise his pitches.
Off the glove of Iannetta, the runners advance.
Well, it's easy for the hitter to see, but it was difficult for Iannetta to see a fastball that was just tailing in a little. He tried to catch it properly to protect his thumb. He tried to get his entire glove behind that ball, but it looked like it hit off the top of the glove and scooted by him. It's a pass ball. As the ball comes into the glove side of a catcher, he'll always try to keep his fingers up. He was keeping his fingers up as that ball sunk a little and whiffed it.
And another walk. 3rd of the inning, 7th of the game. One of them intentional. And here comes Apodaca.
The delivery that's being used right here is just a one that's easy to see the ball from the hitter's eye. And as he does this and comes toward you, take a look at how quickly you start to see ball as he comes towards home plate. Right about there, and you will continue to see it all the way around and even behind his head when you're seeing the swing. The hitters, even at this level, will start to pick up possibly what pitch it is. If they see a lot of fingers, if they see a lot of seams, they will start to recognize the pitch even before he throws it.
But he's 26 years old. Can you fundamentally change the way that a man throws at this age? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think you can too. I think you have to just figure out where the core of the problem is, not the symptom. Because you could end up coaching too many things. So you have to find one thing that fixes about 4 or 5 instead of coaching the 4 or 5 that never fixes anything.
Bullpen up, right-hander Edgar Gonzalez. For Call with a looper to left field right at Eric Young, and the inning is over. They leave the bases loaded. And we're at the end of 3 at Busch, 4-2 Cardinals. After a rainout today, NASCAR's best head to the treacherous turns of Watkins Glen tomorrow at 10 a.m. where championship contenders Jimmy Johnson and Kurt Busch will renew their heated rivalry. The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Watkins Glen, presented by GoDaddy.com on ESPN tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Here's Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. The Cardinals lead the Rockies 4-2. All of the runs in this game scoring in the first inning. Ty Wigginton leads off the fourth for the Rockies. And smokes one right back up the middle for a base hit. On base for the second time tonight.
Edwin Jackson continues to struggle with leadoff hitters and early in the count. That has been his MO throughout this year. It's almost like his early strike pitch aren't high enough quality that once he gets into the count and starts to get his range, he can move the ball around and deceive the hitter.
As Chris Iannetta struck out his first time up. That ended the first inning. Wigginton, by the way, the runner at first, he's the third baseman for the Rockies tonight. The job did belong to Ian Stewart, a guy who's hit well and hit for a lot of power the last couple of years for the Rockies, but had some injuries early in the season, back in the spring, a quad thing, a hammy. Never got going, had over 100 at bats, up and down 3 times, never hit a home run this year, and the Rockies farmed him out again. And so third base has been just a barren position for the Rockies this year, although Wigginton contributes wherever they put him, but he's more of a utility guy than a regular. But I mean, look at the abysmal numbers for the Rockies out of third base, and they expected 20 to 25 homers from Ian Stewart.
I'm amazed that Stewart had 0 home runs this year and had a small injury in spring training, his thigh injury, but other than that he was healthy and just unable to hit the ball out of the park.
1 ball, 2 strikes. So they got nothing out of third base. They had Ubaldo Jimenez, their ace, who didn't win his first game until June. Their number 2 starter, Jorge De La Rosa, suffered an elbow injury, eventually underwent Tommy John surgery, lost for the season back in May. So some serious issues for the Rockies to deal with, and those are some of the reasons why the Rockies, preseason contenders, very trendy pick in the National League West, why they're under 500. It's a foul ball. And as the numbers show you, and as Jim Tracy told us, there's just been a lack of execution at times by the Rockies, and most notably, Bobby, runner at third, less than 2 out, or just coming up with that key at bat, whether it's a ground ball, sac fly, base hit. They're just not getting the job done.
But this is a team that preseason a lot of people like. Dan, you're so right. But they also were 17-8 coming out of the gate. They were playing the kind of baseball Jim wanted them to play, and they wanted to play, and then it just disappeared. And then you start nitpicking with the, we just didn't get the guy over, and we didn't get the guy in, and we're in all the games, and we got walked off on 6 out of 7 games. Yeah, that's what happens during a season, but they had it going, and they let it slip away.
Ground ball up the middle for Call, 1 and 2.
That's why they made the trade, Bobby.
Exactly. That's athleticism and a shortstop knowing his place in space. He reaches out for this ball, fully extended up the middle, catches it with the one hand out, one hand back, then puts on the brakes, touches the base with his right foot, leaps, and makes a strike throw to first. As you propel yourself by touching and leaping, the leap gives you the power, just as the mound does as you're pushing off, and he was able to throw that ball to first base with plenty on it, knowing where you are and how you have to do it.
You fire that back leg.
Pretty acrobatic stuff, especially in slow motion there from Furcal, who's been in the middle of all 3 double plays that the Cardinals have turned tonight. A 1-6-3 double play, a 3-6-3 double play, and now he starts one himself. 6-3, stepping on second and throwing to first.
Well, you see a swing like that out of Rogers, you wonder why they took him off a shortstop. He could bump for a base hit. He could run. He has a great arm. He must have real bad hands, huh?
Must have done something inconsistent. But that 95-mile-an-hour fastball will make you drool if you're a scout and put it on the mound.
Inning over. To the bottom of the fourth. Cardinals 4, Rockies 2.
That's the sound of sunshine coming down.
It all kicks off on Thursday with 4 games. The Little League World Series. 1 o'clock Eastern Thursday on ESPN. Japan taking on Mexico. There's a primetime matchup that night as well. Lafayette, Louisiana against perennial contender Warner Robins, Georgia. Both teams staging comebacks to win in the regional finals. And part of our coverage in Williamsport, Pennsylvania will be Oral Hershiser, who I know loves doing the Little League World Series.
My favorite event of the year. I'm sorry to the big leagues, but those little kids, the smiles, the families around Williamsport, the great job that Steve Keener, the president of Little League, does, and making it fair and safe for the Little Leaguers all year long. It's just a fantastic event.
16 teams, 8 from the United States, 8 international teams, and the U.S. champion meets the international champion in the final, correct?
Correct.
May I congratulate Langley, British Columbia? Is that okay with you guys for winning the Canadian Little League Championship? Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward. I'm going to visit you. If you got room in your booth.
Oh, we will. We have the huge booth.
Yeah.
Almost as big as Mike Shannon's.
John Jay grounds out for the first out. Also, after a rain delay of better than 9 hours, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Final was postponed today between a team from New Jersey, a team from Pennsylvania. Coverage will resume tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It is scoreless in the fourth, so another spot on the line right there. How many games will you do over a week and a half or so?
I think I'm doing 17 games. I have one that I do have a 3 a day, and in between or prior to every game, we're going to have a set there and have the little guys on and have it hosted. Carl Ravitch, Gary Thorne, Brent Musburger comes in for the finals, and I think Nomar Garcia Parra is part of the team also.
That game between New Jersey, Pennsylvania, ESPN 2 tomorrow morning at 10 Eastern. The NASCAR race is on ESPN. Plenty of reasons to stay home from work tomorrow. Here's Albert Pujols. He homered in the first. He walked in the second. And I mean, he homered in the first. 465 feet to left field. Wouldn't chase.
His team was down 2-0, and they needed him to hit one hard with a man on first base, and he did, and tied the game up with one swing of the bat.
This has been a night of patience, discipline, and pitch recognition for Albert. Making Rogers come into the strike zone, letting the game come to him, which means get a strike to hit. Don't expand the strike zone and go to where the pitcher wants you to go.
Reaches for that one just a bit and grounds out for out number 2 between innings. Buster Olney spoke with Colorado manager Jim Tracy.
Jim Tracy, Esmil Rogers having command problem in this game. What in-game adjustment does he need to make?
Well, you know, Buster, it's very similar to his previous 2 outings in that what I was talking to the group about earlier this afternoon, he's had problems with his secondary pitches, getting them in hitters counts for strikes. And tonight, actually, he's battling his fastball a little bit more than you'd like to see, but he's got to hurry because the leash is starting to get a little bit short.
Jim, thanks. Dan, back to you.
That's a great line. The leash is starting to get a little bit short. Jim Tracy said to us in a different context before the game, you know, the majors, this level, this is not a try-hard league. This is a do-good league. And I'm quoting Jim Tracy here. He said, trying hard is great, but you've got to do good if you want to stay here.
Tommy Lasorda said, I can pay truck drivers to do this, to try hard. You're getting paid to do what you love to do, and you used to do it for free all day long. You have to do it up here. And I think hurry means 2 up, 2 down. When he says you better hurry, the leash is getting short. Well, 2 up, 2 down's hurry.
Throwing more strikes this inning. He's walked 7 already tonight, 1 of them intentional.
And this hurrying he's having to do is right in the meat of the order, so it could have been an inning where he imploded. One more quality pitch, he gets the Rockies in the dugout.
Fastball for a strike, full count. Holiday has walked and scored, also struck out. And a bouncer to short. And a 3-up, 3-down inning for Esmil Rogers in the bottom of the 4th. Top of the 5th inning at Busch Stadium. Dan Shulman to Bobby Valentine, Oral Hershiser with you. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell here on ESPN. For the Cardinals leading the Rockies by a score of 4-2. Edwin Jackson facing Eric Young. Top of the order for the Rockies, Young, Mark Ellis, and then Carlos Gonzalez here in the 5th. Young is struck out and flied out. Rockies got their 2 runs in the top of the 1st on a home run by Mark Ellis and an RBI single by Troy Tulowitzki. The Cardinals came back with 4 in their half of the 1st. Cardinals right now 5.5 back of Milwaukee for top spot in the National League Central. There's a bunt. Stays fair, throw to first, got him.
Many left-handers, when they go to drag a bunt, will start with that right foot and will go in behind home plate so that they keep the ball fair. There's a little jab here, and then the right foot goes in behind the plate. And now he bunts it right off the front of the plate, and it's absolutely perfect. Oral, how about the defensive play?
Well, Molina has to determine at the very last second, is it going to go foul, or do I need to pick it up? And he makes a great time and space play, Bobby, understanding the speed of the runner and when he had to make his decision and trust the strength of his arms and his athleticism. It was an awesome play by Yadier.
And Albert gave a very good target on the inside part of the line so that he could catch that ball and not be distracted by the runner.
Now Mark Ellis, 3-hopper to short, backhanded by Furcal, and plenty of arm to get it there, 2 down. Between innings, our Pedro Gomez with Tony La Russa.
Tony, we saw Edwin struggle that first inning, 40 pitches. Since then, he's let the leadoff hitter get on, but the double plays have helped him. What's been the difference?
Well, I think one of his big keys, even going forward, if he's up in the zone, no matter how hard he throws, they can get to it. It doesn't have any movement. Down, he's got good movement, so if he can command downstairs, I mean, and he's strong as a horse. He can pitch a lot longer than this.
We saw Albert blast that shot in the first inning. How close is he to being on top of his game?
Well, he's there. I mean, you know, he's rebounding from that tough start. I mean, he's got everything working. Lifted his average with a lot of at-bats, which is very difficult to do. His production's good. He still gets pitched tough. I mean, he's Albert of every year for 10+ years.
All right, Tony. Thank you. Dan?
Thank you, Pedro. And if you look at the numbers for Albert Pujols, what Tony La Russa says is true. Remember how poorly he started the season. The power was down. The average was down in the first couple of months. But over the last couple of months, he's really brought the numbers back up. Good play by Albert. Carlos Gonzalez grounds out, and the Rockies go in order. In the top of the 5th, the Cardinals still lead. ESPN's coverage of the NFL preseason continues Monday night as Mark Sanchez leads a Jets team striving to beat Rex Ryan's Super Bowl predictions when they take on the Houston Texans. Monday Night Football on ESPN Monday at 8 Eastern. Coverage begins at 7 with Monday Night Countdown. Good to hear the music's back. Good to know football's back. Lance Berkman leads off the bottom of the 5th for the Cardinals, who lead Colorado 4-2. Berkman, David Freese, Yadier Molina coming up this inning against Esmil Rogers. Berkman has flied out and walked. Then he got thrown out trying to steal after the walk. Between innings, as he warmed up defensively last inning, he decided, you know, you never know when Tony La Russa might need another arm out of the pen, especially a left-hander. I know they just picked up Arthur Rhodes, but I got that screwball working pretty good, Bobby.
He was throwing like Arthur.
He looked a little barrel-chested Fernando Valenzuela to me.
I think he was giving a little Arthur because Arthur was watching him warm up, and he was like welcoming him to the team.
41-year-old left-hander. As much fun as Berkman has playing the game, and he has a lot of fun playing the game, he's got some pretty serious numbers. Among switch hitters, only Mickey Mantle, Eddie Murray, and Chipper Jones have hit more home runs than Lance Berkman.
That's pretty elite company. Like Todd Helton, we may be having a conversation about him someday. Hall of Fame numbers as they continue to add on.
I'm really amazed what great shape he got into this year. Seeing him last year preseason, it looked like his eyes were not into the game. His body had kind of rounded into shape, if you will. He played without any enthusiasm in Houston, and he put on that Cardinal uniform after coming over from the Yankees. And he got in shape, and he looks like he's really enjoying himself again. Fabulous player.
Isn't it amazing how pain can take the joy from the game, though? And he had been dealing with so many aches and pains in the knees, and this year with the shoulder, could not wait to get back in the lineup. And you're right, there is a different modus operandi, the way he's approaching his business right now.
Strong human.
Yes.
Big back, great arms, efficient swing.
Full count. There are the numbers from last season. The guys we're talking about, just a 248 average. After so many good years in Houston where he'd hit 300, hit 30 or so homers, hit over 40 home runs twice in his career. Led the league in doubles twice, led the league in RBIs once.
But you know, he's been such a quality hitter. I don't think many people in baseball are overly surprised at his production this year at the plate. But I think most people in baseball are surprised he's played as well in the outfield.
Stayed healthy the vast majority of the season. Now a 6-time All-Star. Swing and a miss. And Rogers gets him for the first out.
And he just kept throwing that breaking ball in. He kept hitting it foul. And he threw it until he made a perfect one. Down and in and swung right over it.
Well, Berkman was grinding this bat out, and it was completely a professional at bat, just fouling off key pitches after key pitch, low pitches, taking a fastball away. But finally, he gets him with a little extra break. But like you said, Bobby, hard for him to get swings and misses.
David Freese hits a breaking ball up the middle for a base hit. Freese is now 2 for 3.
Yeah, the swing and miss comes on a bounce ball or an X-link. What do I want to say here? A perfectly executed pitch. That's what I want to say.
Were you going to say an excellently executed
pitch? Was that
pitch?
easy for me to say or what?
That's a tough maneuver.
The pitch, I really think that he gets people out on the pitch that the hitter gets himself out on almost. That it's so far out of the strike zone the hitter can't reach it anyway. They see the ball so well. They attack the ball early because they've seen it so well, and then they just make the mistake of going too far out of the strike zone.
Unless he really executes the pitch
excellently,
perfectly,
unless it's a really good pitch,
and that too.
But you know what?
Keep it simple, right?
This young man, I like his arm. I like the stuff. You just want to get him a delivery that hides the ball better, because he shows that he has hand speed because he breaks the ball so well. He's got athleticism because of the shortstop, and we watch him pick off runners and hit at the plate. See his quick feet on the pickoffs. It's just he just needs to hide the ball longer from the big league hitter.
Well, you talked about you could perhaps foresee him as a reliever, given the stuff and the release, until they smooth out some of the rough edges. And of course, the Rockies got a lot of young pitching back in the Ubaldo Jimenez deal. Yadier Molina is the batter. Let's go down to Buster Olney. Buster, they might see some of that young pitching at the major league level this year?
That's right. One who's already in their organization, Alex White. And on Wednesday, the player to be named in that deal will be named. Drew Pomerantz, who was a #1 pick last year for the Indians, will officially move to the Rockies organization, start in Double-A, but don't be surprised to see him in the big leagues later this year.
And a lot of these young pitchers apparently are guys keep the ball down, throw the sinker, keep the ball out of the altitude, out of the thin air in Colorado.
Saw Alex White pitch at the College World Series for North Carolina. He is legit. And the thing about getting these young pitchers to the big leagues now or soon is to know how many holes do they need to fill in the offseason if this season continues the way it's going. They know they have a big hole at third base. They need power on one of the corners in the outfield, another place, because Todd Helton, aging but great average, getting tremendous output for where he is in his career, but not the power numbers. So are they going to need to search for starting pitching and corner bats, or maybe just corner bats?
And also with Jimenez gone, every rotation, Bobby, needs an ace. You need a guy you can count on, and it looks like the guy developing into that pitcher for the Rockies is Cholis Chacin, who is 9-9 with a 3.39 ERA, just a 2.07 opponent's batting average, and they think, Worrell, that he's really moving quickly, and he is just about ready to take over as the ace of this staff.
You think about a batting average of 202 against in Colorado, and 9-9. The run support has been sporadic. You're right, Dan. They like that. And maybe they can time it up with the young Cargo and the young Tulowitzki.
In a division where it doesn't look like you need 98 wins to win it year after year, it's a very competitive division. But we've seen how quickly San Francisco, with veterans, won the World Series last year. Then we see with a younger team, Arizona, turning it around and competing this year. San Diego has been in it sporadically, even though they have been in the 80s in wins. That's enough to keep you in the hunt at times in the National League West. And although this is a down year for the Rockies, you get the feeling when you talk with their personnel, they don't think there's any reason they can't contend next year. They think they've got the pieces in place.
12 out is a long way for right now, but Jim Tracy will pin a win or a loss in about every department on the team at how close they are to being good. If it's hitting with runners in scoring position, if it's a few more quality starts early out of Ubaldo Jimenez breaking out of spring training, if it's having the setup guys hold a lead 1 or 2 more games more often.
Up the middle and through into center field. A base hit from Molina. Freese makes a big turn but goes back to second.
He thought about going to third on that and then realized who was in center field and thought second and stayed at second. Cargo charged that ball extremely well. Was coming up firing and would have thrown Freese out at third base had he attempted this. Whoops. No, that's Cargo.
He goes back well. He comes in well. Made the catch in center field off the wall.
Edgar Gonzalez up for the second time tonight. Rogers is over 100 pitches with 1 out here in the 5th inning.
They really like to get him through this inning. But as Jim Tracy said, he's on a short leash. There's no doubt about that. And this long talk is to get the bullpen ready ASAP. Jackson will be his last hitter. Once the lineup turns over again, if it happens this inning, Rogers won't be the pitcher.
So Schumacher steps in. An intentional walk in the first, a base hit into right field in the third. Freeze at second, Molina at first, one down, and the Cardinals try to extend their lead. It's 4-2 right now. On deck, the pitcher, Edwin Jackson.
That's a 24th foul ball tonight, or out of about 100 pitches, and that's just accentuates what we're talking about, and you're talking about how they could see the ball. A lot of quality pitches, throw it up in the zone, throw it in the zone. He's not getting a swing and miss at all because they're seeing the ball just that much sooner than they should be.
Lefty up now in the pen as well, alongside Edgar Gonzalez. Close play out at second.
Very fast feet on the mound, an ex-shortstop. He's shown quick feet on pickoffs to first base, and now showing his ability to turn so quickly like he used to in the middle of the diamond, turning double plays, to be able to pick off at second.
Really like the way Tulowitzki got around the bag there, straddled it, and put the tag down perfectly.
That's not so important about actually getting it out there at second base as it is keeping the runner Freeze close so that he doesn't get an extra step or two on his secondary lead. So on a base hit, you still have a chance to throw him out at the plate. It's a battle of 90 feet, but when he's trying to score, it's a battle of 180 feet minus the secondary lead. And if you can shorten that, you give your outfielders a better chance of throwing him out.
Big swing and a miss by Schumacher, 1-2. Freeze out at second. He singled and went to second on the base hit by Molina, who's 2 for 2 with a walk tonight. The Cardinals have been the best offensive team in the National League this year. Dangerous top to bottom of the lineup.
Iannetta has to make sure he keeps this breaking ball in front of him. If it's bounced, it's probably going to be overthrown.
Nice prediction, Skip.
He was there. That ball's really diving. You're right. He's got a very good arm.
But when he goes to finish his breaking ball, the same thing that exposes the ball to the hitter so early is the same thing that takes him to the left-hand batter's box, stays out in front, wants to bite the breaking ball, makes him then pull the pitch and throw some of those bouncers you're talking about. If we could take home plate, Dan, and move it over into the left-hand batter's box, his mechanics would be perfect.
Really?
Oh, we were talking. That's his direction. He is directionally toward the first base batter's box.
He's coming at you. He's coming at you. He's staying close if you're in the first base batter's box.
Boom.
But you're opened up. And that is something that I think they'll be able to fix.
You can see how the jersey blouses up. The energy points behind the left-handed hitter.
Sharply hit to second. There's 1 and 2 on the double play to end the inning. That's big for the Rockies right there to keep this game close. 4-2 Cardinals. Baseball tonight has an update for you on the other side.
Sunday night baseball, the Cardinals lead the Rockies 4-2 in the 6th inning in St. Louis. Steve Berthiaume back here in our Baseball Tonight studios. It was a dramatic day in the AL West today. David Murphy breaks a 6-6 tie against the A's in the 9th inning with a 2-out RBI single. The Rangers sweep 3 in Oakland. Texas has won 7 of 9. In the meantime, the Angels lost in Toronto on a 10th inning Edwin Encarnacion walk-off hit. The Angels have lost 4 of their last 5. So Texas's AL West lead is now up to 4 games. The Angels and the Rangers play 7 times in their next 12 games, including a 4-game series that starts tomorrow night in Anaheim. Back to Dan Shulman and the gang at St. Louis. It's the Rockies and Cardinals on Sunday Night Baseball. The Sports Center follows the game.
Steve, thank you very much. You mentioned the 4-game series that begins in Anaheim tomorrow night, and that 7 games in a 12-game stretch for the Angels and Rangers concludes 2 weeks from tonight on Sunday Night Baseball. We'll be at the ballpark in Arlington 2 weeks from tonight as the Rangers play the Angels again. Texas starting to widen its lead a little bit in the American League West. Esmil Rogers getting the big double play ball to end the bottom of the 5th. Edwin Jackson and the Cardinals leading 4-2. No scoring since the first inning in this game, as Troy Tulowitzki leads off the inning and pops one back in the seats. Tulowitzki, Todd Helton, Seth Smith for the Rockies here in the 6th inning. Tulo, as he is affectionately known out in Colorado. A couple of base hits, 2 singles to center, and he's driven in a run. He is the major league leader among shortstops in just about every offensive category. And when he gets hot like nobody's business. Had 15 home runs and 40 RBIs in September. In 1 month alone of last year, only one other player has ever done that in September, and that was in 1927, George Herman Babe Ruth. That is quality company for Troy Tulowitzki right there. That's the year that the Babe hit 60. Broke his own record by hitting 60 home runs.
Were you there, Doug? Yeah.
I was not there.
You weren't there for that. Okay.
I believe I am the youngest member of this booth. I mean, I don't want to.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I'm sorry. Maybe you recalled that September.
I was not there.
Well, George Herman Ruth wore number 3, and Tulo hero Derek Jeter, and that's why he wears number 2.
And you were saying, Bobby, this morning you see some similarities in the way they play shortstop, right?
Well, I hope he gets a chance at going into the hole and making the backhand on the grass, and you'll see the signature leap and throw that Derek Jeter has made famous over his playing days, replicated by Tulo.
Chopper to second. 1 down. And just heading into his prime, Troy Tulowitzki trying to lead the Rockies back to the postseason perhaps next year. That seemed a little bit too far out of it this year. Coverage of Major League action continues on both networks. Tomorrow night on ESPN2, it'll be the Giants in Atlanta. Dan Uggla's hitting streak ended today, if you missed that, at 33 games. And then on Wednesday Night Baseball, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the leaders in the National League West, take on the Phillies. That's here on ESPN at 7 Eastern. Both games also available online at ESPN3.com. Talk about Uggla. Finally, the hitting streak coming to an end. A great play by Darwin Barney of the Cubs today. Pop up into shallow right field. Barney went back, made a great catch. There's a base hit into left field for Todd Helton. So Uggla's hitting streak ends at 33 games. An incredible feat for a guy who was hitting 173 when the hitting streak began. And Bobby, but for this play, but Barney, that hitting streak might still be going.
Barney is full out on this. The right fielder wanted nothing to do with the ball, but Barney reaches out with his left, and that's the end of the streak.
And receives a little love from his teammates after really a great accomplishment. Hitting streaks of that length are few and far between. There have only been 5 of them at 35 games or more since Joe DiMaggio's streak in 1941. The longest of which was a 44-gamer by Pete Rose. So Uggla was getting up in some pretty exclusive company.
It's amazing how many die from 30 to 35.
Yet you picked 37 for it to end.
Well,
Bobby,
I like some of the breaks he got in the late 20s.
He did get a sacrifice fly today. Hit the ball well the first time up. And he was on deck as the last out of the game was made, where he could have had one more shot.
You know, Martin Prado was trying to get him up to the plate.
Had a great at-bat to end the game.
7-pitch battle.
As he usually does.
2-1 on Smith, who has popped up and grounded into a double play. On deck is Wigginton. Smith is a guy, as a left-handed batter, came up really as an extra outfielder, pinch hitter, fourth outfielder, then evolved into a full-time player.
You can hit the fastball, Dan, and you can hit it over the fence if it's on the inner third.
Trying to get some regular bats against left-handed pitching, but has not hit lefties very much at all. He's kind of itching for the opportunity to get 600 at bats instead of 450.
And if he gets the ball inside, if you divide the plate into 3 sections, and the middle section is 1/3, and then the outer and inner third are the other 2. If he gets that whole ball on the plate on the inside, he'll hit it, but the Cardinals know that.
That ball was supposed to be outside, but it wound up on the inner half, it looked like, and Smith's got himself a base hit.
Exactly. That ball was supposed to be away. Molina jumped away. As I said, the Cardinals know it, but that ball floated back inside. A little low for him to lift out of the ballpark, but hit it real well in between the first and second baseman.
Ball's down there around the knees where it's supposed to be, just leaks over the middle. It's a pitch. As a pitcher, you don't really say I have to change a whole lot. You might try and make it a little more quality to the outside or inside, but the fact that you got it hit on the ground ball, 4 or 5 hops, still an outcome you don't like, but a pitch you don't mind.
So a threat for the Rockies against Jackson here in the 6th, with the Cardinals leading 4-2. We'll look at some of the headlines around Major League Baseball. We mentioned Dan Uggla's streak is over at 33 games. We talked about the Diamondbacks. They are hot and they lead the National League West. And how about Carlos Zambrano? The Cubs have suspended him for 30 days after he gave up 5 home runs, threw at Chipper Jones, got ejected, packed up his stuff, left the clubhouse, and threatened to retire. An announcement that within a couple of hours his agent apparently rescinded and said, no. Carlos is not retiring. He wants to come back, but you just get the feeling, Bobby, that the Cubs, not only management, but some of Zambrano's teammates as well, have just said, you know what, enough is enough. How do you see this?
The act has gotten old. Very talented guy that everybody says is a good guy in the clubhouse, but if you have to do that, see that once a month, once every other month, where you don't know what you're going to get what he's going to do, it becomes very uneasy in a clubhouse.
Wigginton is the batter. Pedro Gomez spoke with Carlos Zambrano today. Pedro, what'd you find out?
Well, Dan, he's very remorseful. He's very embarrassed over what happened. He told me that he feels like he's a pitcher, a $2 million a year pitcher, instead of the $18 million a pitcher that he is. He feels like he's not pulling his weight, and it was just a fit of complete rage and frustration. And we know over the years that Zambrano definitely has had difficulties controlling his emotions, and that's basically what he chalked it up to. He definitely did tell me, though, he does envision a scenario where he is still pitching for the Cubs again. Now it's up to the Cubs at that point.
I'll bet you they'd take him back with open arms if he said he would go back for $2 million. Well, I mean, just a thought. No, you're looking at me like it won't happen.
That seems to be an unlikely scenario. Yeah,
unlikely. Okay.
I don't think Philadelphia or Milwaukee will go 2-8 either.
Just throwing it out there.
Edwin Jackson, after that last pitch, just reached down and grabbed his leg, and the trainer Barry Weinberg is out to check on him. Let's take another look. Right hamstring.
Yeah, a little tightness in the right hamstring.
He did a real good acting job after Dave Duncan went out there and said, listen, our bullpen's not ready. We need you to throw a couple pitches here and get off the mound. No, I'm sure that didn't happen.
And that's going to be all. Jackson will come out, with the Cardinals forced to go to the bullpen, up by 2 here in the 6th. Back here in downtown St. Louis, Busch Stadium, the home of the Cardinals. They're up 4-2 on the Rockies in the 6th inning. Bayer Advanced Aspirin wants you to know that for the rest of the season, Bayer will be donating $10 to the Red Cross for every strike thrown at 95 miles per hour or faster. For more information, log on to speedupyourrelief.com. With Oral Hershiser, Bobby Valentine, I'm Dan Schulman. It's Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Edwin Jackson is out. Pedro Gomez reporting it is a cramp in the back of Jackson's right leg and his right hamstring that has knocked him out of the game. 2 on with 1 out, and a 3-0 count for Jason Mott to face Ty Wigginton. A knee-high strike at 95, and it's 3-1 for the only Cardinal reliever who has been a member of the bullpen the entire season continuously without leaving, coming in, going to the rotation, or going on the DL. He's been the one constant. He's bringing it.
As he's on a roll, as you saw from the stats that we posted next to him in the pitch prior. 15 2/3 scoreless inning streak. Peyton Manning's friend on second. Eli Manning's friend on first.
Full count. Here it is. Hit it. 95, 96, 97.
Wigginton can catch up with that 97-mile-an-hour fastball. If you challenge him one more time, I think he'll put one in the gap. But if you throw a slider or something, a split that might go down, I think Wiggy will be walking back to the bench.
In the air to right field. And Berkman the catch for the second out.
Yeah, Dan, Bobby, we've talked about Esmail Rogers not hiding the ball, throwing it 95, 96 and showing it to the Cardinals. Watch the way Mott hides the ball, the leg over there guarding it. He stays closed. The arm swing is directly behind the head, out over the front leg, and that is max effort. Here from home, the close, the shoulder stay clone, the arm swing is behind his head, and then it's on ya.
Jam shot foul, right side, 0-1.
Nothing falling towards first base until he needs to unwind all the power that he's gathered with that max effort delivery.
That was excellently executed, Earl.
It's contagious.
Thank you. Skipper always tried to teach me a little about stuff.
I really think that Mott's glove should be higher. I think he's putting a lot of stress on that arm, throwing 96 miles an hour, and if he pitches more than an inning, or if he pitches excess in a season, I bet he has arm trouble.
It does drop below his waist, and you would like it to be in the frame of your two shoulders and both hips, the upper body, to stabilize, to crack the whip. You see how he's hiding it, the front shoulder closed, the front hip. Now the arm goes back and it comes out at you. You're right, Bobby. There is some little recoil there, and a little bit of less bracing from the front side than you'd like.
Iannetta pops it foul, 1-2.
Well, Tony La Russa loves to use his bullpen, and he's gotten bullpen help here at the trade deadline. It allows him to use Mott here in the 6th inning and still have plenty of reinforcements. Here's Arthur Rhodes, who's trying to make his first appearance for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Mott, a converted catcher. Kind of throws like a catcher, too.
Nice play. Inning over. Well, he threw a seed over to Pujols at first. Still 4-2 Cardinals. Going to the bottom of the 6th. ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. Cardinals 4, Rockies 2. We go to the bottom of the 6th here at Busch Stadium. All the offense coming in the first inning. Nobody has been able to add on since. To the bullpen goes Jim Tracy for a young left-hander they are very excited about. Rookie Rex Brothers, who began the year at AAA. But look at the numbers that he has posted, especially, Oral, the strikeouts to innings pitched to begin his major league career.
One of the things you think about with a young pitcher, is he going to be scared to throw it in the strike zone and intimidated by big leaguers? And Rex has not at all, showing not only the quality of his arm, but the quality of his heart and his courage.
Pinch hitter for the Cardinals now, it will be Alan Craig, who, in the words of Tony La Russa, at times carried the club early in the season, was hitting in the 330s in mid-May, but then fractured his kneecap and missed 2 months. Just back recently and having trouble getting regular playing time. He can play second, can play the outfield, but at this point is a bench player for the St. Louis Cardinals. They can also use him at first base if need be. He will bat in the pitcher spot. Rogers, the starter for the Rockies tonight, gives up 4 runs, all earned in 5 innings on 6 hits, walks 7, and strikes out 5. One of the walks intentional. In the air to center, but playable for Gonzalez. 1 down. And now it is the Cardinal pen that is busy. Both of them are going right now, actually. Kyle McClellan is up for St. Louis. Gone from bullpen to rotation to back to bullpen for the Cardinals over the course of the season. Back to the top of the order for Rafael Furcal, 0 for 2 with a walk. Just outside, ball 1.
Rafael showed a bunt there, and he was thinking about pushing it by the left-handed pitcher toward the second baseman. He had a free shot at that from this angle. If Todd Helton comes in and fields that ball, he'll beat the pitcher to first base.
Chopper toward the third baseman, Wigginton. Plenty of time, 2 down. Furcal will be looking for an employer for next year. His contract up at the end of the season. A lot of Cardinals actually have their contracts up at the end of the season. The 2012 version of the Cardinals could be significantly different than this year's.
Including Tony La Russa.
Including Tony La Russa. Including the big first baseman.
If they reach out with the money to sign Albert and sign Chris Carpenter, we might go for a low-cost, solid defender at short and Furcal.
Most of the talk, of course, is centered around Albert Pujols. They've also got options on 3 important players: Carpenter, Wainwright out all year with an injury, and Molina, and then Berkman, Furcal, and Edwin Jackson among the other players who are free agents at the end of the year.
Wainwright's options around $9 million, and coming back from the elbow surgery, I think they'll pick that up.
What about Carp, former Cy Young Award winner? It's a big option they've got on him for next year, and he's up in his mid-30s right now.
It's a big option, and it's also possibly going to depend on if Edwin Jackson can develop. If they need all the money to sign Albert and they decide to retool the rotation, or if they don't sign Albert, they have money to keep Carp around, or maybe they have enough money for both. They're the only ones that can answer that question.
Now, if you guys had to roll the dice, is Pujols a Cardinal next year?
I think yes. I think he has the highest value now because of the slightly down year from his astronomical numbers to, sub-superhuman numbers. I think they know his health the best, and I think around baseball some people are worried because they don't have the inside scoop on a daily basis how much work it takes Albert to get onto the field. They see the production, but I think he'll be a Cardinal.
I don't think his numbers will dictate how much money he gets. I think that's already been decided in baseball on how much he's going to get per year.
That ball will stay fair. Jay grounds out, and the inning is over. We are through 6, 4-2 Cardinals. Major League Baseball congratulates RBI Dominicana on winning the Junior Baseball Championship, Venice Boys and Girls Club RBI on winning the Senior Baseball Championship, and LA RBI on winning the Softball Championship of the 2011 RBI World Series. Congratulations to all. Back to the top of the 7th inning in St. Louis. Cardinals 4, Rockies 2. New pitcher for St. Louis. Right-hander Kyle McClellan has done a nice job at a variety of roles for the Cardinals this year. And a pinch hitter for the Rockies. Batting in the pitcher spot, it'll be Jonathan Herrera, who has seen the bulk of his action at second base for the Rockies this season.
Exactly what you want your reliever to do. Come in, throw strikes, get ahead, 2-run lead, keep that leadoff man off the base.
Big looping curveball up and away, a ball and 2 strikes. Up and in with a fastball, 2-2. McClellan was the guy who moved back to the bullpen after the acquisition of Edwin Jackson to fill a spot in the Cardinal rotation. Breaking ball low, full count. We've got a pretty spirited wave going on around Busch Stadium right now.
Remember the wave.
The 80s live.
The wave and streakers started right about the same time, as I remember.
Only the wave has survived.
Fortunately. I used to time my pitches for when the wave was coming around in the hitter's eye. Left center for a left-hander and right center for a right-hander.
Oh, you so
Aren't
sneaky.
you clever.
Oh, boy.
Used to walk around a la Josh Beckett and wait for it to come around in a key pitch.
Absolutely.
This could be trouble. It's going to drop for a base hit for Herrera. Well, we started to talk last half inning about Albert Pujols, and as has been the dominant story in St. Louis during this season, his contract up at the end of the year. He's a free agent. Will he be back? Will he sign somewhere else? You can't really talk about Pujols without talking about the other big-time first baseman who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, Prince Fielder, who's having a terrific season, younger than Pujols, healthier than Pujols the last couple of years. Now keep in mind that a lot of teams, some of the big money teams, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Phillies, they've all got high-priced, tremendously talented first basemen already. So how many teams are there out there who can afford the likes of Pujols and Fielder? General manager of the Cardinals, John Mozeliak, had a very busy time leading up to the trade deadline, and guys, that may pale in comparison to what his winter is going to be like.
It will definitely be busy and emotional with the Cardinal fans hanging on every bit of news.
Eric Young with a bouncer to second, and they will get the 1 out at second base. Not a great throw by Schumacher, as Furcal couldn't do anything other than catch the ball, managed to keep his foot on the bag.
I think Chicago fans will be interested in Albert.
Yeah, do you think the Cubs are going to wind up with one of those two guys?
They're going to make a move for him, I think, and try. And I think the Dodgers could be involved if things get sorted out there in L.A. Who knows? Maybe, what? I don't think Atlanta. Thinking of big market clubs.
Don't you think you're talking about at least $25 million a season for each of these guys? Forget the number of years, but just the average annual salary. Bobby, don't you think you're at 25?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're at 25, and the number of years will be determined by how these two players finish this season and by that medical report that you were talking about earlier.
Just imagine how painful it would be for St. Louis or Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee fans may have resigned themselves already to the fact that Fielder may be moving on, but if he moves on to the Cubs, how painful that would be for folks in Milwaukee, and the same could be said obviously for people here in St. Louis. And just speculating about the Cubs. They have some money coming off their payroll. They haven't won in a while, so there's an urgency there to win. And can they get themselves one of the big-time free agents in the offseason? How many years, how much money, and does the relatively new ownership of the Cubs have to spend this winter? A Cubs team we'll see next week, by the way, on Sunday Night Baseball when they host the St. Louis Cardinals 1 week from tonight. Over the head of Schumacher into right field. Hustling now to second is Young, and he'll beat the throw. He had to wait to see what was going to happen. 2 on with 1 out. Let's go down to Buster Olney.
That's right, guys. A couple things. I've heard that there is concern within some important corners of the Cubs organization about getting back into the idea of signing high-priced players. You've seen the big contracts haven't worked out for the Cubs with guys like Soriano and Ramirez and Zambrano. And so they might not necessarily get into that type of market, despite the fact they have about $50 million coming off their payroll. And keep this in mind about Albert Pujols. He's the one who decided to stop negotiations at the start of spring training. What the Cardinals have said since then is when they start talking this fall, it's going to be from ground zero. It's not as if they still have that old offer on the table. A lot of sources think it was somewhere in the range of 9 years, $189 million, maybe 10 years, $210 million.
And so if he goes somewhere else, does Prince come here? Is this a market that's available for Prince if Albert decides to take a quick offer somewhere else? I think absolutely.
Here's Carlos Gonzalez. You know, for a team like the Cardinals, this is not a small market. They spend over $100 million a year, but they don't spend 140, 160, 200 million like the Yankees spend. As Tony La Russa is out, and can a team afford to spend 25 or 30% of its payroll on one player? It'll be a fascinating subplot to the winter in Major League Baseball. Tony La Russa's out. He'll take the ball from Kyle McClellan, and we're going to see the Cardinal debut of Arthur Rhodes when we come back. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Back in St. Louis, where it remains 4-2. Nobody has scored. Neither team has scored since the first inning. Still 4-2 Cardinals, but Colorado is threatening. 2 on with 1 out of the 7th. And making his St. Louis Cardinal debut is 41-year-old left-hander Arthur Rhodes, recently released by the Texas Rangers, signed by the Cardinals. This is his first appearance with St. Louis. He had, as you can see, an ERA of 4.81. Was still pretty tough on lefties with the Rangers. Righties were hitting him hard, and he was getting hit hard at home. But Oral, as you can talk about, a lot of guys get hit hard in that ballpark down in Arlington.
Well, you sure do, and the air's thin and the ball travels, and it can inflate your ERA. The effectiveness against lefties has never been doubted. Maybe the stuff has started to deteriorate a little bit for some scouts' eyes, but the Cardinals trust him very much.
The batter is the always dangerous Carlos Gonzalez, and here's the situation. There's 1 out in the inning. Eric Young, with terrific speed, is out at second. Mark Ellis is at first. 4-2 St. Louis. Rhodes, who was an all-star last year as a 40-year-old, comes in to face Carlos Gonzalez. Gonzalez tonight doubled and scored, grounded into a double play, and then grounded out. With a big hit last night, a 3-run home run off a lefty, Jaime Garcia. Rhodes made his major league debut 20 years ago as a member of the Baltimore Orioles.
He's here just to get one hitter out, hopefully get a ground ball. We have Octavio Dotel ready for the next hitter in Tulowitzki. And 2 balls, no strikes is not where Arthur wants to be.
Well, immediately with the move, sorry, Dan, that Tony La Russa gained 63 points in the batting average, 240 compared to 303 versus lefties. Arthur Rhodes against lefties, the very low 200s. This is your typical matchup situation, manager against opposing lineup.
3-1.
Cargo has a stride that goes in toward the plate. He's very good at covering the outside part of the plate. Last night he went out and hooked a ball that was a little off the plate, hit it to right center field. I think the ball's going to be away. And he's seen 4 of them out there thus far. It's going to be cutting it loose on a pitch outside.
Sends it foul down the left field line, 3-2, just as you said, Bobby.
And he was just off of it. The unfamiliarity with the new pitcher who threw 91 miles an hour on this pitch away. He's stepping in and looking out and just misses this ball, slides off of his bat. Terrific swing. Now the decision is whether to send the runners with Tulowitzki on deck in a strikeout situation. Here we have strike him out, throw him out at third base. I think Tracy's going to keep the runners at bay.
Fouled off at the plate.
Because he knew it was going to be a foul.
Oh, it is 3-2. We can argue with them all we want.
I didn't say that.
No,
you said it.
I'm giving you credit.
Okay.
You're right. You're right.
But the idea here is you run the runners if you want to stay out of the double play. That is, if you think the batter is going to hit a ground ball, get the men in the second and third, the tying run at second, the third run at third, or stay at home if you think it's a swing and miss situation. He's staying at home again.
And another foul ball. What we were joking about is on a full count. Bobby told us, I guess, about 6 weeks ago. Did you know that about 70% of pitches on 3-2 counts are fouled off? And you and I are like, he's crazy. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. And every time, just about, it seems it happens. And Marty tells us, Marty Aronoff, tonight it's 8 out of 12. 12 full count pitches, 8 of them have been fouled off.
Well, just think about it. Well, coincidence. I don't believe in them, but I guess it's just a coincidence.
That happens a lot.
Dan, he's not Sir Isaac Newton. He just studies a lot. He hasn't discovered these things. He knows them.
Wow.
Ball 4, and Rhodes walks the first batter he faces as a member of the Cardinals. And with Tulowitzki coming up right now. Checking to see if Dotel is ready. He is. Here comes the skipper. Here comes the righty. Bases loaded, 1 out. Dotel will inherit a jam when he comes into this game. The Rockies really threatening here in the 7th inning. The bases are loaded with 1 out. They're down 4-2 to the Cardinals. And into the game comes right-hander Octavio Dotel, who was picked up in the deal with Toronto a few weeks back. He was, among other things, a member of the Rockies last year. Was also a Dodger and a Pirate, and he's been a Cub and a Brave and a Royal and a Yankee and an A and an Astro. And boy, we got a lot of that going around, it seems, these days.
It's all going around, and this is a situation that Dotel was picked up for. He's very good against right-handers. He's very good in these pressure cooker situations. They are hitting .320 against him this year with runners in scoring position, but he has such a nasty slider that right-handers have a tough time laying off it when it moves out of the strike zone. And coincidentally, that is exactly the problem that Troy Tulowitzki has had in this exact situation.
Knee-high strike.
And he was looking breaking ball, and he got a fastball right there and walked away saying, oh, I knew I shouldn't have been taking.
Young's at third. Ellis, the tying run, is at second. Gonzalez, the go-ahead run, is at first. 1 down here in the 7th inning.
And even though the St. Louis Cardinal bullpen is retooled here for Tony La Russa for these situations, last night their other left-handed specialists, and you'll help me here, Dan.
Mark Zepchinski.
Zepchinski it is. Went 3 innings, so he is unavailable. Dotel is not good against left-handers at all, and Todd Helton is on deck.
There's the breaking ball, swing and a miss, 1-2.
Veteran reliever against maturing hitter leader. And the slider gets him a little out front. If he flicks that to right field, we say good swing. If he swings and misses, we say good pitch.
Outstanding numbers in his career with the bases loaded. Got a piece of the fastball. Edwin Jackson started for the Cardinals. We have seen Mott, McClellan, Rhodes, and Dotel already out of the bullpen. The four of them have combined so far to get 3 outs. Tony La Russa really mixing and matching. And Dotel facing the cleanup hitter for the Rockies, Troy Tulowitzki, with Todd Helton on deck.
And I think you really have to sell out on the outside part of the plate here.
He got him with a slider that looked kind of like it cut the heart of the plate, but he gets Tulowitzki.
Yeah, that ball backed up a little on him. I think the swing was okay on an inside-out swing, but he started him off with that fastball away right on the black that paralyzed him, which was a very good pitch, and then came back with a fastball away, then a slider, another fastball that gets him a little late, and then a backup slider right on the inside part of the plate that Tulo was trying to stay back on, thinking about selling out and hitting the ball on the outside part of the plate, but this is the challenge for Dotel.
Swing and a miss by Helton. Good numbers for Helton in his career against Dotel. As Bobby mentioned, Dotel has been much more effective against righties than lefties. Bases loaded, 2 down. Key moment here in this game with the Cardinals up 4-2. And 2.
This is a situation as a base runner, you have 2 strikes and 2 outs. In this situation, you read the ball coming into the plate, and as you see the ball going into the strike zone, you take off. You don't wait for the ball to be hit or the ball to be called. You need to have the good jump off of second base to score if in fact this is a base hit with 2 outs and 2 strikes.
Took it just below the knees. The Rockies left the bases loaded in the first, hit into double plays in the second, third, and fourth, left 2 on in the sixth, and now have the bases loaded in the seventh. They have had their opportunities. Just 1 for 7 the Rockies are with the runners in scoring position tonight, and that one was way back in the first inning when Tulowitzki drove into Gonzalez on a base hit. Nothing since. Tulowitzki striking out here this inning, leaving it up to Helton.
Jason Giambi over there by Tulo, encouraging him about the last at bat, continuing to build his confidence. Tulo learning to be a leader on this team, not only statistically but emotionally, rising to the occasion in the situation where he just failed is the next step in his maturity. He only gets 43% of the runners in from third with less than 2 outs. Failed again here tonight.
For strike 3 calls. The Cardinals lead the Rockies as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning. The Rockies just left the bases loaded. Look at the breaking ball from Dotel to get Helton, and Helton knew it.
And this was all about Molina, Dan. He went out and told him about the pitch he was going to call. Their new teammates. Dotel says, "You are the guy. Thank you very much." Molina meets him at the line and says, "Yes, follow my lead."
It's a way to make 24 new friends in a hurry. Great job by Dotel. The Cardinals still lead. On the mound right now for the Rockies, right-hander Edgar Gonzalez, who has spent this entire season in AAA, just called up when reliever Matt Lindstrom was placed on the DL a few days ago. A former member of the Diamondbacks, who'll be making his first major league appearance. This is his first major league appearance since the 2009 season. And welcome back to the big leagues, Edgar Gonzalez. 60 feet 6 inches away is Albert Pujols. Who hit a rocket of a home run back in the first. Into left field it goes for a base hit.
The only time Albert has gone outside the strike zone today is when he grounded out. He took a walk. He hit a fastball for a home run. Here, ball runs inside on him, just barely inside, but Albert does a good job staying strong, as Bobby talks about the pyramid, and keeping strong, getting off the backside, and hits that ball just hard enough to get a base hit.
Now 2 for 3 with a walk tonight. Cardinals are getting out hit 10-7, but they're leading 4-2 in a game again in which neither team has scored since the first inning. Here's Matt Holliday. Holliday has walked and scored, struck out and grounded out. Two.
Matt is really deadly on balls out over the plate. Now you have 2 strikes. If you have that same pitch that could run in off the plate, Matt's not disciplined in this situation. He'll swing, he'll get a weaker ground ball to third base and be able to turn 2.
Sharply hit, but right at the shortstop to Tulowitzki, and it'll be the Rockies turning 2, 6-4-3.
It wasn't the one you're talking about, Bobby. He spanked that one, but he tried to run it in there, but just didn't make it.
Had the movement he wanted, didn't have the location. Got the result.
Yep.
5th double play of the game. The Cardinals have hit into 2. The Rockies have hit into 3. So just like that, 2 down, nobody on for Lance Berkman. And a breaking ball slashed into left field, a base hit. Berkman's first hit of the night.
And Earl, the question has to be asked, I guess, and I'm not second guessing. I just would love to understand the reasoning of why Berkman would not be hitting behind Albert. Albert, who has a great on-base percentage. Berkman, the switch hitter behind Albert, neutralizes who they're going to bring in from the bullpen if they walk Albert. Albert's there. Berkman has the hole to shoot through, and he's not as much a double play threat as Matt is. But Tony elects to bat him down. It's interesting.
Or perplexing.
And both, yes. Interesting for Tony and perplexing for us, because we can't figure out why he's doing it. Well, but he's got a good reason.
And we can ask him next week. We'll see them again next week on Sunday Night Baseball.
Yes.
Cardinals and Cubs. 1 week
what
from
a rivalry.
Tonight.
And the hot Chicago Cubs. And we're not going to see the hot Chicago White Sox, who are making their run right now.
White Sox winning today beat Kansas City 6-2. Ozzie Guillen's club is at the 500 mark. It's 60-60 right now after almost burying themselves early in the season, playing so poorly. The Indians were postponed today by weather. They were supposed to play Minnesota. The Tigers lost today to Baltimore, so a good day for the White Sox.
I don't think Jim Henry will come down on the field and give Albert a hug this time.
But as far as the White Sox are concerned with that 500 mark, that's their first step in the right direction. The next is getting over 500 with a win, and then over the Cleveland Indians, who are ahead of them, and then challenge the Detroit Tigers. And it's all set up schedule-wise for the White Sox, if they get hot right now, to do just those things.
At the knees, 2-2 on Freese. Waiting on deck should the inning continue. Yadier Molina. The Cardinals have gotten a lot of production out of this part of the lineup. Freese is 2 for 3 with an RBI. Molina's 2 for 2 with a walk and an RBI. Runner thought about it. Throw to first, and back in safely is Berkman, who's already had one kind of mini adventure on the base paths tonight, getting thrown out trying to steal, sliding and tumbling it in awkward fashion. Got back to first safely this time.
When you take your secondary lead, you have to anticipate the ball in the dirt. Lance did not. He waited, saw the ball in the dirt, then thought he should run, had a second thought, dove back. That's twice he's diving back, and I know that their heart skips a beat when he does.
He'll be on the move now. 3-2. Missed inside, ball 4. 2 on with 2 out. Here comes Molina.
The inning for Gonzalez started with Albert Pujols single, then the double play, but now it's built into a little more pressure back here in the big leagues.
Molina came in hot, and he has continued to stay hot with a couple more hits tonight, raising his average up to 294. Left-hander Matt Reynolds continues to warm in the pen. 4-2 the Cardinals lead. First and second, 2 down in the bottom of the 7th. A little bit late, 0-1.
It's really interesting that AY is so far over in the left center field, even though Molina hit a ball down the left field line his first at bat. They are either pitching him away or he's out of position at this time.
EY, Eric Young Jr. out there in left field tonight for the Rockies. Slice down the right field line, dropping fair. And a run will come in to score.
Oh, they were going to pitch him away. They did. And he made him pay.
Molina's third hit of the night makes it 5-2 St. Louis.
As a pitcher, you'll say, oh, I got burned and I got beat by a bleeder, but I'll tell you what, the walk is what hurts you because it gives this chance an opportunity to fall in. Molina does just enough to give his team a chance. Gonzalez did just enough to set the table. Maybe Smith could have laid out for that ball with 2 outs, give a little more effort. He felt like he didn't have a chance.
So runners on the corners now for Skip Schumacher. Schumacher intentionally walked. He's got a base hit and is also grounded into a double play. Dotel out in the on-deck circle for what it's worth right now. And nobody throwing at the moment in the Cardinal pen.
If he comes to the plate, that'll be an adventure.
But this is an experienced move by Tony. He knows how many pitches his pitchers need. He has Dotel out there thinking maybe they'll just pitch around them. He'll send the pinch hitter up there if he needs to, but he won't now.
Left center, a base hit. Another run in to score. Sliding into third safely, Molina, 6-2. Dotel will hit. Remember, the Cardinals have already used 4 relievers tonight, and they're without Zepchinski, so they're a little bit thin in the pen. There are the career batting statistics for Octavio Dotel. 5 for 75. That's an .067 batting average. And a strike.
067 is a bingo call, I think. It's not a good batting average.
But with a 4-run lead, they can afford for him to go up there and just take 3 pitches, go out and try to get 3 outs.
You think he's under orders not to swing?
Oh, I think he understands that swinging is, he has just as much a chance of getting on base if he doesn't swing as if he does. And I think that chance is nil.
Fair ball. And the side is retired. 5 for 76. Career for Dotel. Laughs all around in the Cardinal dugout. They've added 2 to the lead as well. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun. 6-2, the Cardinals lead the Rockies. We go to the top of the 8th inning. St. Louis got 2, but Dotel was denied in his bid for a base hit. Pedro Gomez is down near the Cardinal dugout. Pedro, what'd you hear?
Well, after it was 0-2, when he let that second pitch go for a strike, Albert Pujols is on the top step here, and he yelled out to Dotel, "Dale swing, muerto," which translates roughly into "swing the bat, deadbeat."
And there's some good comedy. Molina found it funny. Dotel found it funny. El Hombre found it funny when you looked into the Cardinal dugout. Took 2 pitches right down the middle. He was that close to his first major league hit since 2001. But now back to the serious part of Dotel's job, protecting the lead.
Well, we know he takes coaching. Molina went out and told him to throw that curveball to Helton. He did it, and he appreciated it. He was going to take 3 strikes and go back to the bench. His compadre says swing the bat, and he swung the bat and shook his fingers out of his gloves when he was through.
Dotel will face Seth Smith to lead off the 8th for Colorado. Smith is 1 for 3. Defensive replacement for the Cardinals, Daniel Descalso takes over for David Freese at 3rd. Descalso's done a nice job for the Cardinals in a variety of roles on the infield this year. You play for St. Louis, you better be ready. No matter what the situation is, or whether you're the number 1 guy on the roster or the number 25 guy on the roster, you might get in there.
Well, I really believe in that philosophy of making a team. Think of it as a team by letting as many people as to participate as often as possible, and Tony does that too. People say he overuses his bullpen, or he gives guys too many days off. He uses too many different lineups, but the method behind that madness is to have the group feel that they are dependent upon each other. And they're playing like a group right now, ready to make a run.
Well, if you get taken out for defensive reasons, then play better defense. You know, if you want to pitch to right-handers, get right-handers out in a better way. I won't change. But that way you have a specific role, something you do very well, and it also has internal competition to keep everybody sharp and on their toes from losing their job or losing their moments.
Octavio Dotel played for me, broke in with me back in the late 90s in New York, and he always had that smile that we saw at the end of that inning. You played with him, Earl.
Yep.
Wonderful kid.
And he strikes out Smith.
Even when he was a big-time closer, he always had that smile too.
MLB.TV, baseball everywhere. Watch over 100 live out-of-market games per week online and on your favorite devices. Visit MLB.TV for details. So Dotel has come into the game. He has faced 3 batters, Tulowitzki, Helton, and Smith, and he has struck out all 3. Talk about your favorite devices. Buster can't decide between the phone and the computer which one is more of a necessity for him. The busiest man in baseball. Tweeting up a storm even as we speak.
Isn't he glad we're having unseasonably cool weather down there? He and Pedro, they're only on their first shirt.
Ty Wigginton, the batter.
Well, the Rockies had that chance last inning. Number 3 hitter, number 4 hitter, bases loaded, new guy on the mound.
Grounder to short. 2 down. And 4 in a row set down by Dotel since he has come into the game. Don't forget, tomorrow at 10 in the morning Eastern time here on ESPN, the NASCAR race that was rained out today will take place at Watkins Glen, and over at ESPN2 it'll be coverage of Little League Baseball, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Final between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, a game that was postponed today because of weather. They are scoreless in the 4th. They will resume tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mr. Hershiser will be watching to help prep for his role in our coverage of the Little League World Series, which begins Thursday in Williamsport.
I have tomorrow off. I fly from here to Chicago to Harrisburg, rent a car, drive over to Williamsport, prep for a day on Wednesday, start up on Thursday with 2 games of the 4 we're going to telecast.
Enjoy yourself, Oral. That was the experience of my lifetime last year. And tell everyone I said hi, please.
I will. We loved having you, especially when we had the foreign teams, the Japanese, and used some of the interpretation. And
Fairfield, Connecticut was in there. What a wonderful run they had last year.
Yeah.
Oh, and 2 the count on Chris Iannetta. Dotel is razor sharp here tonight. Struck out Tulowitzki, struck out Helton, struck out Smith, got ahead of Wigginton, and then got him on a ground ball. He's thrown 22 pitches, 17 of them strikes. Ooh. And he thought that was his 18th strike, or more relevantly his 3rd strike to this batter, but he just missed in the eyes of Chad Fairchild.
After statistics and after quality outs as a reliever, the next thing the manager wants is he wants to know when the bullpen door opens, you come on the field, are you going to have the correct makeup and be consistent in your approach? And Dotel, over the years, after harnessing his ability early in his career, has had what Bobby has talked about, the attitude, the happy-go-lucky, hard-working attitude. Knows when to turn it on, when to turn it off. And Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan know when he comes through the gate that they're going to get somebody who's concentrating and locked in.
And he strikes out Iannetta. The inning is over. Great job by Dotel. A crowd of better than 38,000 really enjoying themselves here at Busch Stadium. The Cardinals looking for a series win, and more importantly looking to keep pace with the Milwaukee Brewers, who won earlier today, beat Pittsburgh 2-1 in 10 innings. Nyjer Morgan driving in the game-winning run in the bottom of the 10th. He has been a real find for the Brewers this year. The Cardinals up 6-2, a win for them tonight, and they'll get back to 5 games back of Milwaukee with about 6 weeks to go, and still a couple of series left between the Cardinals and Brewers. Top of the order for the Cardinals, Rafael Furcal, to be followed by John Jay and then Albert Pujols. Second inning of work for Edgar Gonzalez for Colorado. Gave up 2 runs on 4 hits last inning. In the air to shallow left center. And Gonzalez takes charge, one down. Well, the Cardinals are a team that has been maligned for their defense at times this year, but tonight we have seen a lot of good defense. John Jay goes to deep left center field, runs it down. Albert Pujols starts the nifty 3-6-3 double play. And then Rafael Furcal, little agility right there to turn the double play. And there have been others. How about the catch Furcal made in the very first inning, going way out into left field to make an over-the-shoulder catch on a pop-up.
Any one of those plays could have changed the game if they did not make the play, because they would have gone to the bullpen earlier, and that would have been an entirely different story.
Jay retired, 2 down. For those of you expecting SportsCenter, it's coming your way as soon as this game is over here on ESPN. We talked about some of the upcoming games for the Cardinals. Bobby mentioned they play some sub-500 teams over the next couple of weeks. And then they have a big 3-game series at Milwaukee. A week after that, they'll have a 3-game series here against Milwaukee. No love lost between the two teams, of course. And if the Cardinals win tonight, again, it'll be a 5-game lead, same as it was at the beginning of the day, for the red-hot Milwaukee Brewers, who have won 16 of 18. It seems every year the Cardinals, Oral, have something going on with somebody. Maybe it was the Reds last year, it's been the Cubs, now it's the Brewers, but little hostility in this division.
They never start it, but they will finish it. Something happens to Albert or Matt Holliday, something where Tony thinks something's out of the ordinary, that somebody's trying to take a little more advantage of the inside and knock people down. They don't have an eye for an eye mentality as much as they might have an eye for 2 eyes.
Pujols 2 for 3 with a walk. Must have been guessing something else right there. 1-1 to the fastball right down the middle.
It's a lot of signs to shake off.
Well, 10 years at 300 and 30 home runs and 100 RBIs, and that's at risk. He needs hits for that average. It looks like he's going to get the 30 home runs. He's at 29. It looks like he's going to get the RBIs. But he needs to hit 340 from the beginning of today to the end of the year to get to 300.
He's hit 340 the entire season. I'm sure he could hit 340 for 170 at bats.
Mark McGuire, the hitting coach, stepped out and said, you can just mark it in the books. He will do it.
Up to 287 right now, up 3 points on the night.
Very good eye, very good patience. 6-2, you could say, okay, I'll hit for myself, but hitting for himself right here is not home run. Hitting for himself right here is just trying to scratch out a hit or a walk that doesn't hurt the average.
There's another one. A 3-hit night for Pujols.
The key to his climb is going to be patience. The skill is still there. It's will he stay in the strike zone and not expand so the pitchers can get him out with their pitches. That pitch inside right there is what he's been chasing. You see the second one, he at least gets a bat on it, doesn't swing and miss. Takes one down the middle, then continues to fight off the pitches here, and that take makes the at bat to get that hit. His strength didn't firm up all the way, Bobby, but he's so strong, and he hit it in the right place.
Hey, many hits aren't hits because of a great swing. They're hits because of a great athletic event where you can control your body and maintain some semblance of balance through a swing. That's what he did right there.
There's Holliday. 0 for 3 with a walk. Pujols, by the way, up another point after that hit, so he's now at 288.
See, the reason you want to firm up on the front side is so you stop the body from coming forward. But see, he didn't stop the body from coming forward. He's not firm on the front side. So Consequently, he's a little off balance for an off-speed pitch, not quite into his triangle of balance, but athletic enough to get a hit.
World-class eye-hand coordination that overcome slightly poor mechanics.
Yeah, there's a little strength factor that's in there too.
Yeah, we'll add that.
Extraordinary strength.
Holiday chases, tag applied, inning over. To the ninth we go at Busch Stadium. The Cardinals try to wrap it up. They've got a 4-run lead. Back in St. Louis, where the Cardinals have a 6-2 lead over the Rockies. They're 3 outs away from defeating the Rockies, losing on Sunday. Something that the Rockies have become all too familiar with. Let's go back to the beginning of the season. Rained out on April the 3rd. They won on the 10th and 17th. And they have not won on Sunday since. They've lost 16 straight games on Sunday. And it looks like number 17, Bobby, is on the horizon.
It's hard to believe. And you know, that Sunday game is the 3rd game, usually of a 3-game series. It's your make or break game. It could be the one that puts you up 2-1 or down 1-2 or give you a sweep or keep you from getting swept. That's 17 in a row. And that's why they're 1-2 this series if they lose this game.
Fernando Salas, the closer for the Cardinals, is in non-safe situation with a 4-run lead, and Dexter Fowler is going to bat for the Rockies to lead off the inning.
Here's Fowler, interestingly enough, was shipped to the minor leagues, had to find something, came back to the big leagues and started this leg kick in batting practice. He was a flat-footed hitter who, really being flat-footed, his athletic ability wasn't being incorporated into his swing. He just started lifting his leg in batting practice. It's hitting 300 since.
Sky-high pop-up. And back into the seats out of play on the third base side. A defensive substitution for the Cardinals as well, as Lance Berkman has come out of the game, and Corey Patterson, another player who came over in the deal with Toronto, has gone into the game in right field. So we have seen Jackson, who came from the White Sox via Toronto to St. Louis. We saw Dotel, who did a great job tonight. Corey Patterson in right field now. Mark Zepchinski went 3 innings out of the pen yesterday. The Cardinals getting a lot of pieces in that Colby Rasmus trade. Foul to back, full count.
Tony La Russa knew if he was going to have a chance to win this thing, he had to bolster his bullpen. He did just that. They now have the weapons that he needs to mix and match after the 5th inning in any game that he chooses. Tonight's one of those games it's going to pay off for him.
Awkward swing by Fowler, 1 down. Tonight's Chevrolet player of the game is Cardinal reliever Octavio Dotel. Faced 5 batters and struck out 4 of them, getting 5 big outs in the 7th and 8th innings, getting out of a bases loaded 1-out jam. Some quality relief work by one of the newest members of the Cardinals. He got no style points for the at-bat. The player of the game was based entirely on what he did on the mound.
I'd love to hear that conversation after the game.
After a win, you get a really good laugh about that.
That's fun.
Eric Young 0 for 4. Eric Young 0 for 5. 2 down. Here was Dotel's bid on an 0-2 pitch for his first big league hit in 10 years. Just missed it.
After being called deadbeat by Albert Pujols swing the bat, that is not why he got player of the game.
But I hit it.
Contact is the first step.
So 4 batters into this game, the Rockies had 2 runs. They haven't scored since. They've stranded 9 men tonight, left the bases loaded twice. And now down to their final strike.
Had plenty of chances to score, had chances to put the game away early. Just missing that killer instinct.
Timed it up perfectly with 3 and 4 coming up. Tulo, your team MVP, most talented player.
What happened there, Oral?
Slightly overthrown.
A little pumped up to finish the game? Or?
A little excited with the remaining 20,000 people or so that are still here making the noise.
Now it's over. Great job by Dotel and Salas. And the Cardinals get a much-needed win to stay 5 games back of Milwaukee. Albert Pujols launches his National League leading 29th home run of the season. Edwin Jackson picks up a win to go to 9-8 on the season overall. Esmiel Rogers takes the loss. No save in this game. And the Cardinals don't gain any ground but don't lose any ground because the Brewers won earlier today. St. Louis is still 5 back in the Central and in the wild card race. Picked up a game in that race with Atlanta losing earlier today. Again, the final score. The Cardinals 6 and the Rockies 2 up next year on ESPN Sports Center. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Oral Hershiser, Bobby Valentine, Buster Olney, Pedro Gomez, and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Dan Shulman saying thanks for watching and so long from St. Louis.